will be a dry, a bright, but a chilly start to the day for some on Sunday morning, particularly across more northern and western parts of the country. So as we start the day on Sunday, still a good deal of cloud across central and eastern areas, still some showers feeding through on that brisk north to northwesterly wind, but there will be brighter skies elsewhere, which will spread to most parts by the end of the day. So Sunday for most looking like the better day of the weekend for getting out and about, but turning unsettled again into next week with some very windy conditions on Tuesday.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else, I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
My thanks to the brilliant Alistair Stewart. A busy show coming up tonight in The Clash, with Jimmy Carr lampooning an audience member for not getting vaccinated, and with an online comedian telling people to wear an effing mask in a viral video. Should comedians be expressing their views on COVID measures? Great question for me to be asking. We'll debate that with The Spectator magazine's Ben Sixsmith, who's written an article about it. Plus, we'll get the views of my two panellists tonight, who are both comedians, Nick Dixon and Dave Chawner. We're also joined tonight on my panel by the hugely talented commentator Sophie Corcoran. Can't wait for that one. They'll be reacting to the big stories of the day and tomorrow's newspaper front pages, which are coming in as we speak. Now, holding the safe Tory seat of Old Bexley and Sidcup, does this pave the way for another Boris landslide at the next election? We'll speak to Benjamin Loughnane from the Conservative think tank The Bow Group. Have they found a cure for baldness? We'll speak to a top hair loss surgeon, Michael May from the Wimpole Clinic. We've got real-life lie detector Darren Stanton on how to spot a fibber. And in my monologue, in 2 minutes' time, it's time that we get back to normal life. We've only got one. You won't want to miss it. I'm not pulling my punches. But first up, the headlines with Karen Roberts.
Thank you, Mark. These are your latest headlines. The stepmother of Arthur Labinjo Hughes has been jailed for life for the 6-year-old's murder. 32-year-old Emma Tustin will serve a minimum of 29 years in prison for starving, poisoning and killing the little boy in June 2020. Arthur's father, 29-year-old Thomas Hughes, was sentenced to 21 years for manslaughter. Former Children and Families Minister Tim Loughton told GB News that more needs to be done to protect children.
There's been a lot of focus on adult social care, where we need to do lots of things to help older people in later life. But children's social care has not been getting that same focus. And we've now got a lot of vulnerable children and families. We've now got a recent record number, over 80,000 in the care system.
Wales has confirmed its first case of the Omicron COVID variant. That's according to the Cardiff and Vale University Health Board. It comes as the World Health Organization warns that the Omicron variant is very transmissible, but urged people not to panic. Speaking earlier, the WHO chief scientist said the majority of cases they'd investigated saw mild symptoms, although it was too early to declare it a weaker strain.
Always a lag between infection progressing to severe disease. So as you know, when you see a surge of infections, it's 2 weeks later that you start seeing that surge in hospitalizations and deaths. So I think we need to wait. Let's hope it's milder.
Authorities in Michigan are searching for the parents of a boy accused of killing 4 students at a secondary school in the US. Earlier, prosecutors charged Jennifer and James Crumbly with 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter. Their son, 15-year-old Ethan, was charged as an adult with murder, attempted murder and terrorism for the shooting on Tuesday at a high school in Michigan. Long-serving director of cricket Martin Moxon, head coach Andrew Gale and the entire coaching team have left Yorkshire Cricket Club. It follows an investigation into claims by Azim Rafiq that he suffered racist abuse while at the club. Yorkshire Chair Lord Patel says significant change is required at the club to regain trust. Star of stage and screen, Sir Anthony Sher has died. He was 72. The Royal Shakespeare Company said he had been diagnosed with terminal cancer earlier this year. He won the Olivier Award for his portrayal of Richard III in 1985 and starred in a number of films, including Shakespeare in Love. You're right up to date. Now, back to Mark Dolan tonight.
It's Friday, December the 3rd. You're watching Mark Dolan tonight. We've got a brilliant show lined up for you. Let me tell you, my Mark Meets guest at 10 is Professor Happiness. That's right, Professor Paul Dolan, no relative, but the best-selling author of Happy Ever After, A Radical New Approach to Living Well, and Happiness by Design, Finding Pleasure and Purpose in Everyday Life. Professor Dolan has come to public attention even more recently as an outspoken critic of the government's COVID measures. He's an amazing guy and will tell his story at 10. Plus, he's got advice on how to survive Christmas for the many people who find things tough at this time of the year. You won't want to miss Professor Paul Dolan live at 10. Now, how can you spot when someone is telling a lie, whether it's a politician, your partner, or a friend? To answer that, we'll speak to the world-famous human lie detector, Darren Stanton, who's up at 11 for Uncensored. In Frequently Asked Questions, baldness. We'll ask whether a cure for hair loss will ever be discovered. We'll find out why my nickname among some viewers is Captain Comb-Over. We'll speak to the president of the British Society of Hair Restoration Surgeons and the principal of the Wimpole Clinic, who specialise in hair transplant and replacement therapy. Michael May, he's live just after 10. The Tories have held the safe seat of Old Bexley and Sidcup, albeit with a reduced majority. But does this pave the way for another Boris landslide at the next election? I'll be joined live in the studio by Benjamin Loughnane from the Conservative think tank, The Bow Group. In the clash, as Jimmy Carr lampoons an audience member for not having the vaccine, and an online comedian goes viral telling people to wear an effing mask, his words, not mine. Should comedians have an opinion on COVID measures? Why have so many high-profile comedians been so quiet? We'll debate that with Ben Sixsmith, who's written a fascinating article on this very subject for The Spectator. And we'll also include in that conversation 2 of my panellists tonight, who conveniently are top comedians. Nick Dixon, wonderful, handsome devil that he was. Great job standing in for me the other day, by the way, Nick. Stardom beckons. And also another good friend of mine, the brilliant Dave Journer, broadcaster, comedian and writer. And I'm delighted to say, also reacting to the big stories of the day and tomorrow's newspaper front pages, is the fantastic political commentator and journalist, Sophie Corcoran. Sophie, welcome to the show. So, I've got a big job for you tonight, as well as your company for the next 3 hours. This week, the Norwegian government raised eyebrows when they sent this rather sad-looking Christmas tree to Trafalgar Square. Take a look at this. It's a bit anemic, I think you'll agree. It's part of a long-standing and wonderful tradition going back to the war, in which the Norwegians send us a tree every Christmas, and I'm sure it will look better once it's been spruced up. But why don't you show me your tree? Let's get your tree on telly tonight, because I checked with Mrs. Dolan. I think it's about the time of year now when people begin to decorate their homes and put the tree up. So have you got it up yet? Because I got it up last night, and I'm very proud of myself. I got it up by myself without any help from Mrs. Dolan. What do you think? It's a bit titchy, isn't it? But size isn't everything. So send in your photos of your Christmas tree, good, bad, and indifferent, and we can get ourselves in the Christmas spirit. That's right, we're going to rate your tree tonight. So send in your pictures of any decorations. It could be the snowman, it could be Santa, but especially trees. mark@gbnews.uk, and we'll put those out shortly. Now, that's my address for the whole show, mark@gbnews.uk. And you know that I love hearing from you throughout the show. Getting your views on national TV is my priority for the rest of the programme. So drop me a line now and throughout. Once again, mark@gbnews.uk. A busy show to come. It's Friday night. It's cold outside, so throw on an extra layer, dig out your slippers, fire up the kettle, and let's get to work. It's only a mask, they said. It's only 3 weeks to flatten the curve, they said. It's only until Easter. It's only until summer. It's only until winter. It's only Joe Wicks, Netflix, podcasts, and Zoom drinks parties at 5 in the afternoon. It's only a restaurant, a pub, a museum, an art gallery, a library. It's only a school. It's only children. It's only an office. It's only an office party. It's only a school nativity, a sports day. It's only the vulnerable. It's only the strong. It's only one injection. It's only 2. It's only 3. It's only furlough. It's only borrowing. It's only 500 billion. It's only mental health, cancer, dementia, heart disease, type 2 diabetes. It's only a lump. It's only a spot. It's only a bad back. It's only a headache. It's only a funeral. It's only Christmas. It's only a gym. It's only a family business. It's only a job. It's only a marriage. It's only a roof over your head. It's only your bills. It's only your past, your present, and your future. It's only your degree. It's only your family abroad. It's only teenagers. It's only young people. It's only the old. It's only arrows in the supermarket. It's only a squirt of hand sanitizer as you go in. It's only a Perspex screen. It's only a one-in, one-out policy. It's only a nightclub. It's only a football match. It's only a mask. It's only 3 weeks. It's only proof that you've been vaccinated. It's only a health pass. It's only temporary. It's only permanent. It's only essential shops. It's only the difference between travelling the world and not. It's only a request. It's only a mandate. It's only the law. It's only for your own good. It's only for the best. It's only for you. It's only for others. It's only 3 weeks. It's only a mask. It's only a Zoom meeting rather than face-to-face. It's only a Zoom lesson rather than being in the classroom. It's only a playground, a tennis court, a swimming pool. It's only a cup of coffee on a park bench. It's only a cancelled event. It's only your opinion. It's only the science. It's only advice. It's only an order. It's only quarantine. It's only a bus ride to a camp. It's only a small march or demonstration. It's only a conspiracy theory. It's only a journalist. It's only a troublemaker. It's only democracy. It's only a vote. It's only your rights. It's only the Nuremberg Code. It's only freedom. It's only history. It's only our values. It's only what others fought for. It's only 3 weeks. It's only next year. It's only forever. Except it's only one life and only one chance to live it. That got quite sweaty. So what's your view? Mark at gbnews.uk. I'm sure some will agree and others not, but let's have that conversation. Helping me to do that throughout tonight's show is my fabulous panel. Political pundit and broadcaster Sophie Corcoran. Sophie's first appearance on this show with me at the helm. Comedian and columnist Nick Dixon. And author and comic as well, stand-up and writer Dave Chawner. Wonderful to have all three of you with me. Sophie, first of all, your reaction to the idea that many of these measures will be with us forever?
Yeah, I think I always get the same answer. Well, it's only a mask, just like you said, but it always translates to it's only everything that people fought for in the past. It's only your freedom. And we only get one life. And I'm young, and my 18th birthday was in lockdown. My 19th birthday was in lockdown. Most of the important parts of my life have been gone, some of the best parts of my life. My education was absolutely ruined, and that's going to affect me forever. And I say this about the school stuff is, this virus will eventually go. The damage that they've done to my generation and our futures will stay with us for the rest of our lives.
Of course, I should counterbalance this, shouldn't I, Dave Chawner, with the fact that these measures, about which I've been very critical, are clearly well motivated. They're motivated by the preservation of life.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think people genuinely fought on the beaches of Dunkirk so that others didn't have to wear a mask. I think that's a very false equivalent. And also, I actually think that, you know what, actually, it is a temporary measure. I genuinely do not see what the government would get in locking us down, in ruining the economy, in shutting parts of the hospitality industry. I don't think that they want this any more than us.
Do you see any end to it, though, Dave? Because that's my concern. The emphasis of tonight's big opinion piece was about the idea that it was only 3 weeks, it's only a mask, it's only temporary. And what I'm concerned about is that none of that has come to pass. It's been anything but only and anything but temporary.
Yeah, I think you've also got to realise that, like, the past 18 months has felt like 18 years, and I realise it is absolutely dragged, but viruses don't go away overnight. And I always said that, you know what, getting people into lockdown was relatively easy because you just scare the bejesus out of them. But then actually turning around and going, oh, by the way, it's all fine now, that takes time. And I don't think there is any easy route out of lockdown. And you know what, spoiler alert, I don't think it's going to come quick.
I mean, could a bankrupted nation be the way out of lockdown, Dave? Because I've often lamented the wealth of this country, our ability to borrow half a trillion quid, with which to, pursue this scientific experiment.
I also think I've heard the argument as well that it's not like borrowing, like you've gone down to Keith at the corner shop and said, hey, lend me a fiver. It's actually borrowing off our own Bank of England, which...
Is that how you borrow, David?
Yeah, along with the top shelf magazines, Mark. But I'm no economist, but I realise that it is borrowing in a different way. But yeah, absolutely. I want people to be able to go back to their jobs, go back to their places of work and earn more money. But I also realise that this in and out, seesawing of in and out of lockdown, it's not doing anyone any good. So I don't know what the solution is, but I also think it's important to bear in mind that there are bigger things at play in terms of the economy.
I mean, do you think, Dave, a final thought on this? It's great to have your valuable input because we're coming from a different place on this one. Do you think that there is a natural end game for these measures? I mean, will we still be talking about lockdowns in 5 years' time?
Mark, I think if our Prime Minister can't even complete a speech without rambling on about Peppa Pig World. I don't think that there is some dystopian master plan in order to scare us, inject us with 4G or 5G vaccines. I don't think this government knows what it's going to do next week, let alone next year. And I think that's the only thing that makes me think, yeah, actually, I think there is no master plan. And I think it is going to be difficult.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. I definitely didn't mean it in that sort of conspiracy theory way, but just in the sense of, do you not think that we just can't do this forever?
Oh, no, I emphatically agree.
Even if you're the biggest sort of, lockdown enthusiast, surely there's a timeline that says in 2, 3, 4 years' time, this has to end.
No, and that's why, look, I'm just a professional idiot. I have no answers.
Far from it. Don't devalue yourself.
But that's what we thought, though, wasn't it? We thought that there was a time limit to this, and there wasn't. We thought there was only...
Who thought there was a time limit?
We thought there was going to be 3 weeks to flatten the curve and job done. We thought it'd be until you save Christmas, and it weren't. We thought it'd be 1 year, now it's 2 years, now it's 3 years. So how long have we got until it is 5 years?
If anyone genuinely thought we'd have a global pandemic over quicker than it would take Amazon to deliver some new slippers, then I think you're an idiot. I think we all knew that it would take some time.
Yeah, but sometimes different to sort of where we're at, from what we were told.
I understand the argument that, you know what, this is very difficult. And actually, I think what you've got to look at is what more can we do? And that, I think, is where the real crux of it lasts, of what more can we do to try and get rid of this disease? I honestly don't know.
Nick Dixon, are you as patient about these COVID measures as Dave is, or indeed his corner shop proprietor, Keith?
Well, of course I'm not, Mark. I mean, I agree basically with you, not just because I'm trying to get back on the show, but this has always been my view. People like me were called selfish because we sort of question things like masks and we question COVID passports and things like this. Because the idea is that in times like this, we're supposed to all become collectivist and focus on the group and all this kind of thing. And those of us that focus on rights and the individual rights and freedoms are thought to be selfish. But the idea that we should all group together and just get it, not be collective, is based on 3 things. It's based on the severity, the time-limited nature of the disease, and the idea that just the measures aren't that big a deal. Just put on a mask, just take the vaccine, etc. But I think all 3 of those are in doubt now. As you've alluded to in your intro, the severity now is in doubt. We've got it under control. It's not necessarily that bad compared to the cancer deaths you alluded to. The time thing, as we've said, it's going on and on. With all these variants, there's no reason it would ever necessarily end. And then the idea that it's not a big deal to wear a mask or to take a vaccine you don't want, I would also question that.
Fascinating stuff. Well, what's your view? Because we question everything on this programme from across the political and COVID spectrum. mark@gbnews.uk. The emails are flooding in, as always, plus photos of Christmas trees, which are largely, they're largely sort of broadcastable. A couple of X-rated ones, but let's see what we can do with the Photoshop on that. So thanks very much for sending in so many messages already. I'll get to those very, very shortly. But next up, Boris has held on to a safe Tory seat. He's seen inroads in his majority, but this is after a torrid week to forget for the Prime Minister. So does this pave the way for another Boris landslide? We'll speak to Benjamin Loughnane, research fellow at the Bow Group, which is a Conservative think tank. But this week, Jimmy Carr made headlines with a stand-up comedy routine in which he lampooned somebody for not having the vaccine in his audience. So should comedians have an opinion on COVID measures? We'll speak to Ben Sixsmith from the Spectator magazine, plus our own Nick Dixon and Dave Chawner. Lots to get through. See you in 2.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Now, I'm delighted to say that Daniel's in charge of the show tonight. So, Daniel, a warm welcome to Mark Dolan tonight. He's already cracked the whip several times. Have you noticed the uptick in quality of our programming tonight? So, Daniel, welcome aboard. And, yeah, we've got a busy show for you. I'm really excited at 11 in Uncensored. We're going to speak to the real-life human lie detector. Darren Stanton will tell you how to spot a politician, a loved one, a friend, or even your boss when they're lying. He's got the toolbox. And Professor Happiness, Paul Dolan, no relative, sadly. I'd love some of his genetics. Paul Dolan is with us at 10. He's my Mark Meets guest. He's written so many books about happiness and how to achieve it. And he's got great advice for people, many people who struggle at this time of the year. So can't wait for that one. And we've got the clash in a second, but let's have a look at some quick emails and messages. Mark, your big opinion tonight must be shared far and wide. You missed a bit. It's only the 70-year-olds, the 60-year-olds, the 50-year-olds, 40, 30 and 20. The teenagers, stop, for God's sake, stop. We're retired and don't know how many more years we have to the end. So we've lost 2 of those years so far. Lest we forget, men and women died for our freedom. When Sajid Javid procured enough jabs for 2022 and 2023, when does this end? Thank you so much, Susan, for your message. Frank says, Mark, a pandemic trumps freedom of choice. What about social conscience and the common good? The symptoms of a narcissistic society have never been more evident. So Frank there taking the opposite view. And Frank, thank you so much for your message. David says, Mark, fabulous words. Our time here is almost done. Something rotten we're all aware of is tightening its grip, but not all of us understand or see, which is sad. Thank you so much, David, for your positive words about the show and the channel. Piers says, hi, Mark. More people will die of untreated cancer than COVID. Many of the deaths attributed to COVID were not. This is about the Great Reset and not a cold. Well, look, I don't know anything about resets, Piers. All I can see is a very damaging set of policies which have caused more harm than good. But you're entitled to your view, and my mind is open. So thank you for sharing the thoughts that you have. Your point about the deaths not being COVID, of course, to develop that, it's clearly the case that that tragic COVID death figure is people who have died from COVID or with COVID. And I think it's important to add that caveat, not that that diminishes the tragedy for those involved. A couple of other quick ones. Mick, your excellent monologue, you missed one thing. It's only the humiliating and degrading requirement to comply with a series of measures, and that the world and its wife realise by now they're pointless. Useless masks, incorrectly used, vaccines that don't stop transmission, and so on and so on. The list goes on. Regards, Michael. OK, well, look, I could be reading your messages all night long. I'll get back to them very shortly. And the Christmas trees are coming in thick and fast. But it's time now for The Clash, in which we tackle a major news story from opposing points of view, because we love balance on this show and on GB News. We like a right old ding-dong. Now, the comedian Jimmy Carr, of whom I'm a huge fan, what a talented guy, made a splash this week with an excerpt from his latest comedy tour in which he castigated an audience member for not taking the vaccine. Take a look.
Let's talk about the controversial thing, the vaccine. Who's not going to take the vaccine because they think it might be dangerous? Raise your hands. Now take that hand and slap yourself in the face. Did you hear that? That was the voice of reason, wasn't it?
This follows a viral video from the character comedian Jonathan Pye, who plays a fictional news presenter, urging the public to wear a mask. Take a look.
Unless you have a really good reason not to wear a mask, wear a mask. You know, I find it difficult to breathe with a mask on. Well, if you seriously struggle to breathe with a thin bit of cloth on your face, then you're probably in the high-risk category for COVID-19, and as such, you really need to put a mask on.
Well, the issue of comedians supporting the government's narrative was the subject of a fascinating article in this week's Spectator magazine by one of their best writers, Ben Sixsmith, who joins me now live from Poland, alongside two of my panellists on tonight's show, who very helpfully are top professional comedians, Nick Dixon and Dave Chorners. So, gentlemen, all three of you, welcome to this conversation. And if I can start with you, Ben, why did you write this article? And can you give us the sort of main theme of what you wrote?
Well, the article I wrote was about how comedians are substituting amusement for kind of ideological affirmation. So my problem with Jimmy Carr's segment there wasn't so much that it expressed his opinion on the vaccine, it's just that it wasn't funny. And I think you could tell it wasn't funny because the reaction of the audience wasn't really to laugh, it was to cheer and applaud, because they didn't find it entertaining as much as they just agreed with what he said.
Can you hold fire? Because we're having a bit of trouble with your line and you've gone into Dalek mode. It's basically mid-70s Doctor Who, Tom Baker, I would say. So we're going to just reconnect your line and get you back because we're desperate to hear every word that you've got to say. But whilst we discuss this, I'm delighted to also be joined by Dave and by Nick, who are on my panel. Nick, do you see a difference there, as pointed out in Mr. Sixsmith's article, between laughter and audience applause?
Yeah, well, Ben in his article calls it clapter, which is what it's called when you clap instead of laugh. There was a bit of that. There did seem to be an element. The audience were whooping. They were just pleased to be in the majority. So I hated the joke personally. The follow-up joke was a bit better when he talked about the population being dense and he did a play on words about the people being dense. That was a decent joke. Yeah. So the follow-up joke was okay.
But Nick, listen, we're good pals, but perhaps the reason you don't like the joke is the message. I mean, I think it's a perfectly good joke.
I think it was a bad joke and a bad message, but I will allow this caveat that, of course, as a comedian, I do support his right to say the joke, even if I don't like it. And the thing is with Jimmy Carr is that you don't particularly think he means the jokes, if we're being fair. So all his jokes are incredibly dark. Some comedians, you know, they might say they hate people who voted Brexit, and we tend to think they're probably telling the truth. Whereas Jimmy Carr, he has a persona which is dark jokes. In this case, it was against people who might question the efficacy and safety of the vaccine, which I think are perfectly reasonable positions. So I didn't like the target of the joke, but of course, as a comedian, I say, fair enough, it's just a joke.
Dave, do you think comedians should have a view on COVID measures and in particular the heated debate around vaccines?
So I find this really interesting because I've been on the show before talking about, you can't say anything nowadays, cancel culture, it's all... And now we're on this show saying, well, he said something that we like and, we shouldn't say that. I think everything is fair game for comedy. I think it's about the intent. It's about how it's executed. And look, you know, yeah, you might not like the joke, but I'll absolutely stand by his right to say it.
However, I mean, is it the job of Jimmy Carr to humiliate a member of the audience for having exercised, you know, a bit of bodily sovereignty?
Well, it's his show, so yeah. I mean, simply put, if you're going to a Jimmy Carr show, you're asking for Jimmy Carr to speak. So yeah, I kind of think. And when you start saying, you know, well, actually, when you start saying, Jimmy Carr can't talk about masks, well, Jimmy Carr actually shouldn't really talk about, like, women, and Jimmy Carr shouldn't talk about... Of course, that's ludicrous.
Why do you think he's done that joke? I mean, is he essentially backing the government's narrative on COVID? I mean, do you think that he'll be doing jokes about lockdowns next or mask wearing?
Look, I think if we're in such a state that the government is sponsoring Jimmy Carr, we've got bigger things to worry about. Of course, I don't think he's backing or been sponsored or anything like that. I think it's, with all due respect, and I genuinely mean this because I really respect Jimmy as a comic, I think it's an easy joke.
But one thought about this, Nick, is we've seen the rock stars speak out, haven't we, about COVID measures. So, for example, Ian Brown, who will not perform to audiences that have had to demonstrate their vaccine status to get in. Van Morrison, who's written a song about lockdown measures and has been very vocal about the impact of lockdowns on the music industry. There's also Noel Gallagher, who said on national radio earlier this week that he will not follow any future rules and he will not accept another lockdown. So the rock stars are speaking out. Why are the comedians playing it so safe?
Yeah, I mean, lots of rock stars have gone along with it. You've sort of cited the exceptions, but we've seen loads of people like Elton John get involved in the vaccine campaign. So, and Dave's sort of mocking the idea of Jimmy Carr being sponsored. I don't think he's been sponsored for this joke, but I do think comedians, high-level comedians, were possibly asked to say, hey, let's see you doing your little vaccine card and all that sort of thing. I don't want to get too conspiratorial, but we did hear of Instagram stars saying, I've been given offered a certain amount of money to promote the vaccine. So that sort of stuff does go on. And like you say, comedians have been incredibly silent. Not me, because I've got nothing to lose. I've just been mouthing off since the start. But top comedians with a lot, who are a lot more,
Well, yeah. Nick, you're clever because you've basically cancelled yourself, and Dave can always borrow money from Keith at the corner shop. I mean, Dave, I do think there's something a little bit harsh about the tone of Jimmy's joke, and I completely agree with you. I sort of defend to the death his right to do any joke he wants to, and you're definitely right to point out that here at GB News we're against cancel culture, so I won't be cancelling Jimmy anytime soon, not that you could. But it was quite cruel, wasn't it? I mean, this is basically, it involves a bit of swearing, it involves why didn't you slap yourself in the face, so there's a slightly violent theme there. And then we saw Jonathan Pye, who plays a brilliant character as a kind of fictional TV news presenter, who's saying, wear an effing mask. I wonder whether the tone is the problem here.
Oh, come on. I think, if you're going to see Jimmy Carr and you think that's offensive, then you have got a long 2 hours. Strap in. That's like saying, Billy Connolly, he was all right, but he was a little bit of a sweary Mary. I mean, that is what people expect. And actually, that's what comedy breeds on, is that acerbic persona, that real, sort of not standing middle of the road of going for it double barrel. So I think that's absolutely fine.
Look, Dave, you've actually been really, really interesting on the subject of COVID measures since the beginning of the pandemic. You do a colossal amount of TV and radio work as a pundit. But why have so many other comedians been so quiet? Why do they seem afraid of this topic?
I honestly think that's a question that stumps me. I honestly don't know. I think there is a fear of, firstly, pretending. I'm very honest that I ain't an expert. I don't know anything. I'm not a virologist. I'm not. But
are comedians afraid of losing gigs, losing TV slots, if they criticise masks or lockdown measures, even though privately that's their view?
Look, I know where you're railroading me into this, and I want to say no, but
I'm putting words in your mouth, baby.
I think there might be a little bit of truth within that, and I think actually.
But that's pathetic for a comedian to have no backbone. If you're a comedian and that's what you think, you should say it on stage.
Yeah, Dave's being way too cautious. Obviously, in the comedy world, he knows there's one way you can think on any number of issues, and the comedians are sticking with that because they're terrified, like you say, of losing something, gigs, work, agents, whatever it is. Dave, we all know that. So, and can I just come back on the Jimmy Carr thing? Yes, it's a joke. Yes, he's always harsh to his audience, and that is fine. It's his show. That's partly what people come for. But I think the reason people are so annoyed about it or worked up is because the people who are questioning vaccines have been so vilified, and the way they're being treated in Austria and Germany is so horrific that I think people are extra sensitive about it. I just wanted to say that. So that's why people are so upset about it.
Well, what's your view? Mark at gbnews.uk. Do you want to hear comedians talking about COVID measures? Should they stick their necks above the parapet? What's your view? Do let me know your thoughts on that. So much more to come after this. Boris has held on to a safe Tory seat. That's not a big story, but after a week and a month to forget, has the Prime Minister demonstrated that he is still popular in the Tory heartland? Does yesterday's by-election victory pave the way for another Boris landslide in a year or two's time? We'll speak to Benjamin Loughnane about that one from the Bow Group, which is a Conservative think tank. Now, you've been voting on our Twitter poll about whether comedians should get involved in the COVID debate. And 72% say comedians should get involved. Phew, thank God for that. 28% said comedians should not have an opinion. So thanks very much for voting in that poll. As I said, we'll talk Boris next. And you can get some questions in because I've got Professor Happiness live at 10. The amazing academic and author and podcast host, Professor Paul Dolan, an expert on happiness. If you want some top tips from the prof, drop an email in right now. He's live at 10. You can drop me a note, mark@gbnews.uk, or you can Facebook or tweet us any questions as well. See you shortly.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Your Christmas tree photographs are coming thick and fast, and Daniel tells me that they will be broadcast from 10. That's right, before Professor Paul Dolan, Professor Happiness, we will be showing some of your Christmas trees, your Christmas decorations. I've had a personal look, and some of them are truly fabulous. So thank you so much for that. This is because, of course, the Norwegians always send us a tree every Christmas to thank us for the war. It's a wonderful tradition. This year's tree looks a little pale and emaciated, like it's had a rough lockdown. I'm sure it will be fine once it's been spruced up. But that inspired us to ask you for your Christmas decorations and trees, which I bet you are far better than that in Trafalgar Square. And also, by the way, before the end of the show, another great British game show. Matt has been hard at work crafting an absolute corker tonight, and it's called Lapland or Poundland. And we'll be having a look at whether certain gifts can be purchased for less than £10 in a Secret Santa. So the Great British Game Show at 11:45. Don't miss that one. On comedians talking about COVID measures, Ronald says, Mark, I think it would have been funny if Jimmy Carr got head-butted after that rank joke, the big ponce. Wow, he's not pulling his punches, is our Ronald. Of course, Jimmy doesn't pull his either. Alan says, would Sheffield ban Jimmy Carr in the way that they banned Roy Chubby Brown? I think that's a very fair point. Noel Gallagher for Prime Minister, says Laura. He couldn't do any worse than the current clown. Peter says comedians are allowed an opinion and to make jokes about anything they want. I like Dave, who's on your couch. Everything that comes out of his mouth is hilarious, and he's not afraid to show the public how stupid he is. Oh, my goodness. You guys are coming in hot tonight. I don't check all of these emails in advance, you might have noticed, and why should I? Everything that you say is unedited on my watch. Peter says, I wouldn't normally call one of your guests stupid, but as he called one of your other guests stupid, I guess he wouldn't mind. And Peter, thank you for that. It is, of course, all about opinions. Charlie says, Mark, as usual, your introduction is spot on. It's time to get this country up and running again. The brave made this country, not the fearful. And finally, Vinka, who says, Dear Mark, your words in your big opinion slot at the start of the show touched me deeply. It's only our life, one life, and it has stopped as there is no joy. There is fear in my heart. I've made my choice and I'm paying for it, but I can't do it any other way. This is not about vaccines. It's bigger than COVID. No idea what, but it's very clear to me if they're targeting young who wouldn't suffer from contracting COVID, then there must be another agenda. Well, look, thank you so much, Vinka, for your thoughts. And I can hear there that you're not in a good place, but we've got your back, OK? And do try to stay positive. And I'm absolutely certain that the truth will out and that the madness of what we've seen over the last year and a half, 2 years, will become apparent in the months and years to come. Future historians will have a simple question, which is what the hell were they thinking? That, of course, is only my view. Others take the opposite view. Keep your opinions coming in. Mark at gbnews.uk. Professor Happiness, Paul Dolan, not a relative, sadly, is live at 10. The Human Lie Detector, Darren Stanton at 11. How can you spot if someone's telling porkies? Plus, have they found a cure for baldness? We'll speak to a top hair surgeon at 10:25. It's a busy old show, isn't it? But amid allegations of illegal Christmas parties at number 10, with the reintroduction of controversial COVID measures in England, and in the throes of an ongoing migrant influx in the Channel, and a growing cost of living crisis, the government managed to hang on to the safe Tory seat of Old Bexley and Sidcup. Louis French, who sounds, doesn't he, like an elderly theatrical agent, but is a politician, was elected as the new MP, Louis French, replacing the highly respected former Cabinet Minister James Brokenshire, who very sadly died in October from lung cancer. The 2019 election majority was cut from 19,000 to 4.5, with a 10.3% swing to Labour. But given the low turnout and the government's current travails, does this result pave the way for another Boris landslide at the next election? To discuss this, I'm delighted to welcome a good friend of the show, the sharpest suited commentator in the business from the political think tank, the Bow Group. It's Benjamin Loughnane. Hi, Benjamin.
How you doing?
Good to see you. Tell me what your thoughts are. I mean, last night, yes, it was a bloody nose for the Tories, but they held the seat.
Well, I think people are very angry about the migrant crossings, very angry about lockdown. That's why we've seen a low turnout. They don't want to vote for Labour because Labour offer exactly the same thing on migrant crossings and on lockdown and on a number of issues. But they don't want to vote for Tories because they don't want to give their consent to what's going on at the moment. So people just simply stayed at home. So we saw a very low turnout, but we also saw a rise in the swing to Labour and also to Reform UK. People aren't really talking about that. 6%, it's almost 7%, I think, in the polls for Reform. That's a huge figure for a party which has not really had much press coverage. It hasn't had much in terms of saying anything, and really just as a protest vote against the party. I think that's quite incredible.
Well, Reform UK is the perfect option at the next election for anyone, including many of my viewers, who feel politically homeless.
Well, I want to see it substantiated a bit more. They've got some time to really build some kind of manifesto and put forward some good candidates. Obviously, the Brexit Party in 2019 was an absolutely incredible tour de force in that election. It stood for so much. People understood what it stood for. They knew the people who were standing in the election. They had a great crop of candidates. But in this coming election, whenever it's going to be, they really need to establish that presence again as Reform so that people really know exactly what they stand for in a post-Brexit period.
And I wonder what would be the manifesto promise of Reform UK. As you said, they've certainly got a year, perhaps 2 years to prepare a platform. I would have thought that they would guarantee in any future pandemic to handle the pandemic based upon libertarian principles, no lockdowns, no business closures. I mean, that's what some Democrat politicians forgive me, some Republican politicians are currently fighting on at the moment in America. They're saying they're running on a campaign message of no lockdowns, no school closures, and no business closures.
Yeah, a lot of what the Brexit Party stood for was pro-business, pro-freedom, that sort of liberty, business, trade, etc., that idea. If you apply that then to the lockdown era, you know, pro-business, pro-freedom, etc., that's the perfect platform. It's a logical development of the same values that they had in the previous election, but in the modern age with all of this lockdown and whatnot that's going on at the moment. So I think that's what they really need to position themselves towards if they want to frighten the Conservative Party into taking a much more conservative stance on these things and not just going along with what the rest of the world are doing. We've seen things in Australia and New Zealand. We don't want that here.
Back in 2010, David Cameron felt the hand of Nigel Farage on his shoulder. Of course, Nigel of this parish now. And David Cameron was politically astute because he took seriously the threat from Nigel and from UKIP. And his solution was to offer the British public a referendum on EU membership during that 2010 campaign. And I think that certainly, I mean, it was a hung parliament, but the Tories were the biggest party. And I think it was because of that decision. Can you see the Prime Minister Boris Johnson pivoting to the right or pivoting towards freedom or being more decisive on the Channel crisis based upon pressure from Richard Tice and from Reform UK? Could a similar dynamic emerge?
One of the problems over the past 2 years is that there's been absolutely no threat from the right. It's all come from the left. So Boris has had to lean into the left.
And he's outspending Jeremy Corbyn virtually.
Exactly. The tax rises, the restrictions, all of these things, they are not Conservative policies. But why would you adopt Conservative policies when you have no Conservative opposition? You have no threat in that regard. So the most Conservative that people can vote for at the moment is the Conservative Party, whatever it stands for. And so you find this sort of weird centre-left policy making within the party, which isn't what people voted for in 2019, and it's not what they want to vote for at the next election. So we really need to see a threat come from parties like Reform. If anything, I'd love to see some kind of unity between the parties. You know, we've got Reclaim, we've got Reform, we've got Heritage, blah, blah, blah. We've got all of these different parties, but they're all working at cross purposes. We need to get some kind of coherent opposition to things like lockdown and to the Channel crossings, which people are very angry about in this country, but they have absolutely no outlet electorally to vote against.
And possibly an electoral arrangement between the likes of UKIP, Neil Hamilton, Reform UK and the rest of them, that they work together in any future national poll.
Yeah, so you have this old thing of the progressive alliance on the left. We need that sort of equivalent on the other side. We need to get some kind of, and not just, it's not even about left or right anymore. It's about freedom. It's about really basic principles. It's not a left or right issue. It's about
and you can't rule out Tory defections, and particularly even in the Commons.
But the main thing, the main force, isn't the defections. It's the fact that people within the party are emboldened by that opposition. They can turn around and say to Boris, if we don't get serious on this issue, I'm going to lose my seat. You're going to let me down. You know, we really need to get some kind of answer for my constituents so that I don't lose my seat in the next election. When you get that pressure coming from within the Conservative Party, it moves the whole party back to its core principles, which are freedom, conservatism, and pro-business.
And what about the public's view of Boris Johnson, most importantly his supporters? Do you think they will bear with him for the foreseeable future? What's your prognosis for Boris Johnson? Does he make it to fight the next election?
Well, it depends on if you mean in the electorate or within the party. Within the party, I think it's entirely dependent on whether they're going to keep their seats. So you see the Red Wall, for example, the moment they start to see the Red Wall being threatened, it's likely that they're going to lose the gains they made in 2019. All of those Red Wall MPs will say, hang on, I'm not sure I'm so loyal to this man anymore than I was previously because I'm going to lose my seat. What's the point in, at this point, staying loyal to Boris Johnson? If someone else can come along who is a better candidate, who's more likely to keep those gains, then why wouldn't they support them?
Now, one of the key issues is the migrant crisis. Boris Johnson thinks his big issue now after Brexit is the environment. I don't think it is. I think it's national security, and I think it's our borders, and I also think it's the cost of living and the economy. Those, I think, would be top of his inbox. Are you hearing better mood music between the Brits and the French when it comes to the Channel crisis?
Well, I don't think so. I mean, they're saying a lot of good things, but I think whatever olive branch they seem to have offered is more of a Trojan horse. It's something which is being dressed up to be a really good solution, but whatever agreement I think would actually result in us receiving more migrants than we send back. It would be one of those two-way streets sort of thing where we would end up getting people sent to us via what they call safe and legal routes in order to stop the illegal Channel crossings. But we don't want that either. You know, we actually want to prevent these people from coming over. What was the point in Brexit if we're starting to accept more migrants than we were during the time we were in.
And obviously, we want a humanitarian policy, and you know, it's suboptimal, the situation at the moment, and of course tragic in some cases, as we saw the week before last. But ultimately, you know, the public, the unedifying sight of people sort of, you know, arriving in the UK undocumented, in dinghies, running for the hills, covering their faces. This is just a shocking spectacle. It's unacceptable to the British people.
Yeah, and it's one of the reasons why things like the environment aren't a huge issue, because that's, even if it is a threat, it's an intangible threat. But when you see the people arriving in boats, running up into the hills, that's very tangible. People can see it, it's happening. That, you know, you can be sunbathing on a beach down in Kent or, you know, Folkestone or Dover, and people can run past you off the boats. You know, these beach landings, they've happened. People just sunbathing have seen these sorts of things happening. And when it's so in your face, I think people get quite angry about it.
And of course, the messaging is key, because when you facilitate these routes, and of course, you know, nobody wants a tragedy to happen, and that's why this has to stop altogether, because it's a national security emergency. It's also a humanitarian emergency too. But you're really communicating with the gangsters, with these criminals, these millionaire thugs who are taking money off people to make this crossing. And it's those are the people that we must communicate to say it ain't going to work and you won't get people into the country.
Well, at the moment, their business is being facilitated by the French and the British governments, because we are not getting around the negotiating table and making sure that something is solved. I see this less as an issue for the Home Secretary and more one for the Foreign Secretary and the Prime Minister. This is an issue of international diplomacy. We need to be communicating across borders to prevent this from happening. They shouldn't be leaving the French shore in the first place.
How much is the French election a factor, and when it's done and dusted and over, do you think this could be resolved? Because I read in the Times this week one particular columnist who said there is no end to this crisis. Well, it can't be fixed.
It's a huge factor in the sense that in France they have the opposite problem to what we have here, in the sense that Macron's main opposition is Eric Zemmour, so that's a threat from the right. When in France people see migrants leaving, that plays into Macron's election strategy, because they think, thank God, these people are these camps on the
we don't want them.
On France, yeah,
send them to
they
Britain.
don't want them. If they're leaving, that plays well for Macron. And when he comes out and calls Boris Johnson a clown and says it's a circus
and cancels meetings with the Home Secretary,
meetings and all of this anti-British rhetoric, that plays into his base very well, because people are very angry about this sort of thing over there. So Macron doesn't want a big story saying Macron agrees no more migrants going to Britain just before an election. That is not in his interests. So it's in his interests for this to continue. And that's what we need to contend with.
Briefly, if you can, when do you think the next UK general election will be?
I'd say probably sometime in mid-2023, unless there is an emerging threat from a party like Reform and some sort of Conservative alliance, in which case I think Boris would want to call it as soon as possible to prevent that from getting off the ground. So it really just depends on how the next few months go.
Brilliant stuff. Benjamin, you're with us in the studio for the panel on the 10th of December?
Yep.
Looking forward to that. Thanks so much for joining us in the studio. Benjamin Loughnane there from the political think tank The Bow Group, predicting a slightly early election. Well, I spoke to the Sun's Trevor Kavanagh, who can't rule out an election, wait for it, next year. Yikes. Now, coming up, there's still time for you to get your questions in for my Mark Meets guest. It's happiness expert, Professor Paul Dolan. He's written several books on the subject, and Christmas is a tough time of the year for so many people who are reminded of those that they have lost, and of course, especially in the last year or two. So get your questions in to the Prof right now, mark@gbnews.uk. After this, your Christmas trees will be arriving thick and fast. And don't forget, at 10:25 in FAQs, frequently asked questions, we're going to take a deep dive into hair transplants. That's right, have they found a cure for baldness? I occasionally get nicknamed Captain Comb-Over on this show. It's real, I promise you. But I'll get a consultation from the man himself, a top transplant expert, Michael May. So lots to come. First up, the weather.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello, rather changeable conditions this weekend. There will be outbreaks of rain at times for just about all of us at some point. However, it does tend to turn drier and brighter for most on Sunday, if feeling on the chilly side. Now back to the here and now, a number of weather fronts skirting across southern counties of England. Meanwhile, this weather front waiting in the wings will bring a thicker cloud and outbreaks of showery rain in from the northwest. This may well give some sleet or snow over the higher ground of the north. All in all, quite a lot of cloud around overnight tonight, and that will help keep temperatures up, at least not falling too low. We could just see a touch of frost in more rural parts of the west, where we do see clearing skies towards the end of the night. So a little bit of a chilly start for some tomorrow, but not as cold as some recent mornings. However, as the wind starts to become brisker through the course of the day, it will feel decidedly chilly, even where we do get a glimpse of sunshine. There will be a good deal of cloud around throughout the day on Saturday, a little bit of sunshine here and there, but further outbreaks of showery rain, and again, some of that will be on the wintry side, particularly over higher ground. Now, as we head through Saturday evening and overnight, this showery rain continues to track its way eastwards, not clearing the east completely. Further showery outbreaks here, but elsewhere tending to turn drier as the night wears on. So it will be a dry, a bright, but a chilly start to the day for some on Sunday morning, particularly across more northern and western parts of the country. So as we start the day on Sunday, still a good deal of cloud across central and eastern areas, still some showers feeding through on that brisk north to northwesterly wind, but there will be brighter skies elsewhere, which will spread to most parts by the end of the day. So Sunday for most looking like the better day of the weekend for getting out and about, but turning unsettled again into next week with some very windy conditions on Tuesday.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk. Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else, I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Lots of messages coming in. Earlier in the show, I did my big opinion piece, which of course happens at 9:03 every Friday, Saturday and Sunday. I'm delighted to say that Carl, our head of social media and digital tonight, has crafted tonight's big opinion monologue onto our website. So you can go to @GBNews on Twitter. David Atherton has tweeted in, if you're not watching Mark Dolan on GB News, do check out his opinion piece. One of the best pro-freedom, anti-government lockdown pieces I've ever heard. David, thank you for the kind words. On comedians getting involved in discussing COVID measures, Peter Campbell says, Mark, Jimmy Carr's joke may be polarising, but that's the point here. It's an example of what's called the cheap pop. Regardless, I consider Jimmy Carr to be a certifiable, undisputed national treasure. I'll leave you to work out what that means. Peter, thank you so much for that, and I couldn't agree with you more. He's a remarkable talent indeed. Stephen has emailed on the subject of Boris and the Tories. I voted Conservative, not Blue, Green, Labour. Boris, another one here on Boris from Adrian, who says, Dear Mark, where Boris and the Tories will suffer at the next election is if the illegal immigration issue is ignored. Beware, Boris, people put you there, but they can take you away again. Adrian, powerful words. Jake's emailed, Mark, every week I wonder how you're going to top your already brilliant level of sense and wisdom. You've gone and done it. Brilliant summary of everything done wrong and how it's been so lightly and carelessly done. Well, look, he goes on to say, it's only an email, it's only an opinion, it's only GB News, it's only Mark Dolan. Jake, thank you so much for that. And finally, Angela, who says, Dear Mark, so glad your voice is back. Well, look, it is great to be back, and thanks for all of your messages of support when I went a bit croaky last weekend, and sincere thanks to Nick Dixon on Saturday for stepping in halfway through the show, and my pal, the brilliant Patrick Christie's, for doing the show on Sunday. So, lots more to come. I'm very excited. We are going to do FAQs tonight. We're going to have a look at hair transplants. Have they found a cure for baldness? And also, I'm delighted to say, I'm going to speak to the positive professor. That's right, the Professor of Happiness, Paul Dolan. But first, here are the headlines with Karen.
Thank you, Mark. Here are your headlines. The stepmother of Arthur Labinjo Hughes has been jailed for life for the 6-year-old's murder. 32-year-old Emma Tustin will serve a minimum of 29 years in prison for starving, poisoning and killing the little boy in June 2020. Arthur's father, 29-year-old Thomas Hughes, was sentenced to 21 years for manslaughter. Authorities in Michigan are searching for the parents of a boy accused of killing 4 students at a secondary school in the US. Earlier, prosecutors charged Jennifer and James Crumbly with 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter. Their lawyer says that they left town for their own safety, but are returning to face arraignment. Their son, 15-year-old Ethan, was charged as an adult with murder, attempted murder and terrorism for the shooting on Tuesday. Prosecutors say the parents' actions went far beyond negligence.
Their investigation revealed that the 6-hour 9mm handgun purchased by James Crumbly was stored unlocked in a drawer in James and Jennifer's bedroom. The notion that a parent could read those words and also know that their son had access to a deadly weapon that they gave him is unconscionable, and I think it's criminal.
Wales has confirmed its first case of the Omicron COVID variant. That's according to the Cardiff and Vale University Health Board. It comes as the World Health Organization warns that the Omicron variant is very transmissible, but urged people not to panic. Speaking earlier, the WHO chief scientist said the majority of cases they'd investigated saw mild symptoms, although it was too early to declare it a weaker strain.
Always a lag between infection progressing to severe disease. So as you know, when you see a surge of infections, it's 2 weeks later that you start seeing that surge in hospitalizations and deaths. So I think we need to wait. Let's hope it's milder.
Long-serving director of cricket Martin Moxon, head coach Andrew Gale and the entire coaching team have left Yorkshire Cricket Club. It follows an investigation into claims by Azim Rafiq that he suffered racist abuse while at the club. Yorkshire Chair Lord Patel says significant change is required at the club to regain trust. Star of stage and screen, Sir Anthony Sher has died. He was 72. The Royal Shakespeare Company said he had been diagnosed with terminal cancer earlier this year. He won the Olivier Award for his portrayal of Richard III in 1985 and starred in a number of films, including Shakespeare in Love. You are right up to date now. Back to Mark Dolan tonight.
Lovely message here from Mark, who says, "Dear Mark, thank you for your cheerful and positive delivery, no matter what the subject. It's what we all need. So uplifting, and I look forward to it every time." Well, look, here at GB News, we do want to look at the positives and find the good news stories, and our glass is very firmly half full. And thank you so much for your support and your company. A really big 2 hours to come. We'll be speaking to Professor Happiness himself, Paul Dolan, in just a couple of minutes. Fantastic published author, academic, podcaster as well. Also, have they cured baldness? We'll discuss that in Frequently Asked Questions at 10:25. And at 11, we'll speak to the human lie detector, the one and only Darren Stanton. You'll have seen him on TV. He can spot a liar a mile off, and he'll give you some top tips. Plus, we've got my panel coming back in to react to the day's big stories and tomorrow's newspaper front pages, which are arriving as we speak. And before the end of the show, the Great British Game Show, and it involves Father Christmas. You're going to love it. So, lots to get through. Now, I've been asking you to send in your festive pictures because a photograph emerged of the Norwegian tree sent to Trafalgar Square. It was a bit pale and sad and pallid, while your offerings are far better. So this is Paula, who says it's been a long wait, but look at that monster. That is a beast, Paula. Congratulations. I'd love to know how long it took you to do that, but that's going to take some beating. We've got another offering from Slobodan, who says, "Love your show. You speak sense, brother. Registered nurse here. And this is the Christmas from the nursing home where I work." Another beauty. That is glowing. That is glowing in the dark, Slobodan. Well, look, thank you for the photo of the tree. And may I send a very, very Merry Christmas to you and everybody at your nursing home, all of your residents and the staff, who I know do such a brilliant job and work so hard. This is Carol's tree now. Oh, look at that. That's stylish. That's like out of a catalogue, that is. That's an interior decorator's dream. That was Carol's tree. And then we've got one more. Oh, look at, who's that ugly bloke on the telly over there? And this is Alan. Alan says, "Merry Christmas. I'm glad your throat is better." Well, Alan, thank you for that. And that's a lovely tree. It's a bit like mine, because mine, I've been criticised for the size of mine, which is the story of my life. But I think that it's what you do with it, isn't it, rather than how big it is. Anyway, do keep those Christmas trees coming in. What a brilliant selection there from Alan and Slobodan, Carol and Paula. You're all superheroes to me. Can't say which is my favourite tree. They all brought something to the party. Speaking of which, it's time now for Mark Meets, in which I interview the biggest names in the world of showbiz, sport, academia and politics, or simply someone with a big story to tell. Tonight, Christmas and the seasonal holidays are a time of joy and celebration for many, but a big challenge to the mental health of others. Some of us are reminded at this time of the year about those we've lost and how lonely we might be feeling. No better man to equip you through this difficult time is Professor Happiness himself, Professor Paul Dolan. No relation, sadly. I'd love his genes. But Paul Dolan is the best-selling author of books including Happy Ever After, A Radical New Approach to Living Well, and Happiness by Design, Finding Pleasure and Purpose in Everyday Life. Paul has worked as the Chief Academic Advisor on Economic Appraisal for the UK Government's Economic Service. He's a member of the National Academy of Sciences panel on well-being, and he's also a member of the Measuring National Wellbeing Advisory Forum. He's currently Professor of Behavioural Science at the London School of Economics and Political Science. And in 2002, he won the Philip Leverhulme Prize in Economics for his contribution to health economics. Now, speaking of health economics, the professor has also gained a bigger reputation in the last 2 years as an articulate critic of many of the government's COVID measures. And if that wasn't enough, he's the creator and host of the hugely popular Duck Rabbit podcast, in which he invites academics, commentators, politicians, activists, and the public to look at the other side of any arguments. Professor Paul Dolan, welcome to the show.
Wow, thank you very much, Mark. I feel like I now need to live down to that intro.
No, you're definitely going to live up to it. Paul, are you a naturally happy person, or is it a skill that you've acquired?
Well, the answer for most people is, I think, both. I think for me, luckily, I think it's the former. I actually think I'm just predispositionally happy. I mean, not all of the time, of course. Proportionately sad. But there are lots of things, of course, that individuals can do, whatever their own individual baseline. And you mentioned happiness by design, and of course, I say of course, but as I outline in that book, the way you do that is by designing your environment, organising your life and your day in ways that make it easier for you to be happy without having to think too hard about it.
So what might that look like? Because I know both books are fantastically practical as well as very philosophical. So could you take us through a set of tools with which to manage a difficult day?
Yes, that's a good question. I mean, if anyone were to prescribe to you a one-size-fits-all approach to being happy, they're probably selling snake oil. So I want to start with that very important caveat that it's for individuals to work out for themselves how best to do that. I think that all of us, having said that, are motivated to find a balance between things that we find pleasurable on the one hand and we find purposeful on the other. So fun and fulfillment, or other words that people might use to describe pleasure and purpose. And so, first of all, you're kind of seeking to find that balance. And once you've understood what that might look like, then you start engaging in activities that you find those kinds of balances in. So things on the one hand, fun, on the other hand, fulfilling. There are some things that are universally good for us, though, I think. Some of these are obvious but overlooked. I always feel a bit like I should apologise when I say some of these obvious things, because people go like, well, no shit, I know that makes me happy. But the answer is, well, why aren't you doing more of these things? And it is about making it easier for ourselves to do that, right? So listening to more music, to going outdoors, being with people we like being with, having new experiences, helping other people. All of these things are, if all of us did a little bit more of any one or more of those things each day, we'd all feel a little bit happier. And so, as I say, the key thing is in making it easy for us to do that, having plans that implement ways of listening to more music, going outdoors and so on. And it's interesting, as I was kind of reeling those off, which I've obviously reeled off many times before in my life, it isn't the first time I've said them, but you think about what some of the policy responses have been over the last 18 months that have taken away many of those things, right? Music, going outdoors, being around other people that you like being with, having new experiences. These are all things that have been significantly curtailed over what's now 20 months. So I guess I know you probably wanted to leave the COVID discussion until later, but I couldn't help but kind of, once I'd said those 5 things, it sort of really struck me that if you think about the things that have been taken away from us, they are pretty much all the things that have been on that key determinants of individuals' happiness list, if you like.
And I think that's why you haven't been able to stay silent on COVID measures. And you would have had a quiet life if you had, Paul, but you took a different path.
Yeah, I would have had an easier life for sure, and a quieter one. I think I was struck very early on by the degree of consensus around an event or a condition and a virus that was incredibly uncertain. We heard the term unprecedented mentioned an unprecedented number of times. And so therefore you would expect there to be some considerable degree of disagreement about what the appropriate response should be. And it struck me, particularly amongst academics, of course not all, but most academics were very supportive of incredibly restrictive measures, the like of which we'd never seen before in the history. Well, as far as I am aware, I'm not a historian, but certainly, you know, the most draconian restrictions on human activity that we've seen. So it struck me that consensus can't be, well, either real or certainly right. And the thing that I was most challenged by was what I've variously termed situational blindness, which is the idea that when we pay attention to something, it's important because it's in front of us. So obviously COVID, transmission risks, hospitalizations and deaths were incredibly salient. But what it meant is that we focused only on those outcomes. And we dropped the pebble of the policy into the pond, and we looked only at the splash according to those outcomes. And we ignored ripple effects downstream, all those effects on life experiences and life expectancies, right? I mean, even if you only cared about health, loneliness is right up there as being one of the biggest determinants. So you would want people to be socially engaged, even if you only cared about health, leaving happiness to one side. And I was incredibly concerned that we were ignoring all of these ripple effects whilst paying undue attention to the splash. And actually surprised that, you know, given, I mean, I think it's hard to argue with anything I've just said. I mean, obviously you'd expect me to say that, but it is hard to argue with anything I've just said. When you're intervening, you want to capture all of the costs and benefits insofar as that's possible when you intervene. Now, in March 2020, we couldn't do all of that, could we? Because, maybe we might not have been able to because we were reacting very quickly. But we're fucking 20 months on, right? And it appears to me still that we're not taking proper account of some of these really significant and adverse effects on people's life experiences and life expectancies. And it kind of suggests quite a broken policy process.
We didn't have a cost-benefit analysis. We didn't think this through prior to the pandemic or in its early stages, which was a big mistake. It should have happened, but I guess a forgivable mistake. But your argument is that a year and a half, almost 2 years on, we've got the data now. We've had our cost-benefit analysis. We had lockdowns. We've still got a very high relative COVID death toll, very little to show for it, and yet the policies continue.
Well, I think even if you don't do a cost-benefit analysis, there should at least be a checklist of, you know, a handful. Literally, it doesn't even need to be more than a handful of items that are significantly important consequences of intervention. You know, closing schools. What effects might we expect those to have on social development, on educational outcomes, on inequalities? Just having it on a checklist, having it salient in the minds of policymakers when they're making these kinds of decisions would be almost enough at any point. And so, sorry, I forgot your question.
Well, yeah,
say again. What did you ask me?
The argument is that you could perhaps forgive some of these measures, you know, in an emergency in March of 2020. But what troubles me is that we don't seem to have changed the narrative or learned from any mistakes almost 2 years later.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things that come to mind for me there. One is the fact that I think people... Look, for you to be so supportive of the restrictions, you first of all have to assume they work. Now, I'll leave that discussion or some of that at least, to the epidemiologists who might be well placed to be able to discuss that. But it's at least questionable whether in the long run they've had an effect. And secondly, which is much more my own area of interest and expertise, that they're almost costless or transitory. And I think both of those assumptions are highly suspect. The idea, you know, we've got tens of thousands of children missing from school. The numbers are not exact, but literally that are still missing. You know, they're not missing in nice middle-class homes being taught by parents. They're missing. They're in county line gangs. They're in places we don't know where they are. Yeah. Now, without a cost-benefit analysis, we should have had the foresight to be able to predict those outcomes. And secondly, it kind of raises in my mind this very powerful narrative to preserve life. You're a very strong moral person if you say, limit COVID at all costs, right? Because you're narrowly focusing on COVID at all costs. But at all costs are significant adverse consequences for the life expectancies and life experiences of the most vulnerable people in our society. So that moral high ground is in fact a moral low ground.
Do you think things will change? I mean, if you think about the psychology around COVID now, we've become very divided and different tribes have emerged. It's a little bit like Brexit, isn't it? You've got your pro-lockdown, pro-mask people, and then you've got your others who reject the narrative. How do you see this playing out, Paul?
It's a really good question, Mark. So it's certainly the case that a lot of what we're doing is faith-based rather than evidence-based, and people are falling into religious camps almost, as you I think quite rightly articulated. I think that the first thing to say is that we don't know. Anyone who would try to predict how things are going to be in the long term, given what's happened over the last 18 months, is going to be a fool if they think they can do that with any degree of certainty. The very simple but not very helpful answer is that some things will stay permanently changed and other things won't. The better answer is probably that most things won't change for that long. I mean, we have very short memories of things, right? I mean, you've actually been ill. I just heard from the intro the last week. I'm sure at the times when you were most ill, you were thinking, I must remember how great it is to feel healthy again. And of course, now you completely forget that you were ill. So we, kind of individually and societally, we have very short memories of what's happened. So most things will kind of, for many people, bounce back to some considerable degree relatively quickly. What I've been most concerned about, and what society and policymakers should be most concerned about, are the vulnerable people for whom that isn't the case. For those that already had pre-existing mental health problems, that the worst thing in the world would be to be socially isolated again. These are people who are going to be adversely affected, as I say, the tens of thousands of kids missing from schools. Their lives, most of those people's lives are not going to turn out well anytime soon, if ever. And so I think what, my frustration, my anger really, I guess, is that there haven't been more voices speaking up for those kinds of vulnerable people. And still, 20 months in, I'm not hearing them heard very. I'm not
agree.
Hearing them held very loudly.
We're not hearing it from politicians. We're not hearing it from, in many cases, churches and religious leaders. We're not hearing it from the media. And we're not hearing it from academia. Now, the clock's against us, but I'm fascinated by your career because you are a top academic. And yet, counterintuitively, you feel like a bit of an outsider. And I just wonder whether that's why it was your instinct to question the COVID rules when they happened, because I would suggest that most academics have fallen into line. What's different about you?
What are you saying, Mark? You're saying that I'm not a typical academic. I find that hugely insulting. Yeah, no, I don't think. I am.
You're not a dusty prof. Do you know what I mean?
I do. I totally know what you mean. I
You're
took
not
that
an
as
establishment
the incredible. No, I'm certain. No, I have certainly been called many things in my life. I doubt very much whether that will ever be a term thrown at me. And I think maybe temperamentally, it sort of speaks to an earlier part of my answer, which is about whenever there's a received wisdom or a kind of consensus, I want to think about or challenge and question whether that's indeed the received wisdom, and that is wisdom. I think that we should be much more questioning and challenging. And actually, one of the reasons that I went into academia from the working class background that I did, which was rare. I mean, it's actually rare for working class kids to be in elite occupations, so-called. I don't quite like those terms, high status occupations, rarer in academia, was because you could have a good argument and you could discuss things and you can thrash through differences of opinion and find points of similarity, find points of departure, agree to disagree on some things, change your mind about others. And it's the last 20 months have kind of really made me feel quite depressed about our ability to do that. And I think a lot of it is driven, all of us as academics and others too, think that we can come at evidence and data in a very dispassionate scientific way. And of course, we bring priors, we bring our beliefs to those kinds of questions. And academics, generally speaking, are very cautious, risk-averse people who actually probably don't mind working on Zoom all the time and not having to go into the office. So I can't help but think that some of that framed the way that many academics looked at the virus and looked at the restrictions that were put in place, because personally, they were actually doing all right out of them.
Yeah, that's the problem. And their paychecks have continued to arrive. Look, we could talk for hours. I know you're going to return and be a panellist on a future show, Paul, and I cannot wait for that one. I suppose final question really, which is how did you fall into this? How did you become a top academic and an expert on happiness?
Oh, mate, why didn't you start with an easy one or finish with an easy one? Well, look, I mean, we can all construct very coherent narratives about how we had particular coherence or strategies or whatever. I think most of what happens to us is a sort of randomness that we then create a story about afterwards. I do remember feeling very lucky and privileged to be able to do something that meant that I could read, write, think and teach, not get my hands dirty, not risk my life, and get paid reasonably well for it. And that was a fucking privilege. I really felt honoured to be able to do that. And so that kind of got me into that threw me into academia. I think that answers the point about the so-called top academic. How I got into happiness is I think I've always been interested in the essence of human welfare, that kind of richness of our experiences that is the essence of life, the things that motivate us, that drive us, but that are not easily measurable and quantifiable. And I think I know this for the purposes of public policy, you need to quantify things for them to count. And so I think if there's one thing that coheres in my now nearly 3 decades as an academic, it's the sort of quantification of the unquantifiable. It's to ensure that policymakers take account of the richness of the human experience when they're making their policy decisions. I think that's the thing that holds my academic life together.
Well, we could talk to you for hours, and we love your strong views and your deliciously colourful language, Paul. We're post-watershed, so no harm in that, although apologies if anyone...
Yeah, no, I'm really sorry. Sorry, I didn't realise, I wasn't even aware of it.
Because you won't be cancelled on this show, and you won't be diluted either, Paul, after. Look at fascinating stuff. Your books are called Happy Ever After, A Radical New Approach to Living Well, and Happiness by Design, Finding Pleasure and Purpose in Everyday Life. Professor Paul Dolan is also the star and host of the fantastic and very well listened to podcast, simply called Duck Rabbit. Brilliant stuff, Paul. See you in the studio really soon, and amazing feedback coming in. Stephanie just said, what an amazing interview with Paul Dolan, true legend. Thank you. Couldn't have put it better myself. Well, lots more to come after this. We've got our news agenda with my panel. How do you feel about being vaccinated once a year, forever? We'll also have a look at a tragic tale of child abuse. And how about sleeping over at an IKEA store? But after this, in Frequently Asked Questions, have they found a cure for baldness? We'll find out. See you shortly.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else, I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Tomorrow's newspaper front pages are coming, plus the human lie detector, Darren Stanton, at 11 o'clock. Thanks so much for your amazing Christmas decorations, which are coming in thick and fast. Here are some more. This is from Philip, who says, "Hi, Mark. Glad the Macron has gone from your throat. Welcome back." And that's a lovely tree. God, I can't believe how many pictures I actually feature in. I feel very, very honoured to be next to your lovely tree. That's a very nice, moody photograph, Philip, I've got to say. Yeah, you've got big baubles, haven't you? Has anyone ever told you that before, Philip? Congratulations, that's a lovely, lovely tree. How about this? James sending love to the GB News team from Dubai this Christmas. Look at that, Christmas in the Middle East. Another corker, plenty of tinsel. Merry Christmas, James. Lovely to have your company. Of course, we are an international news network. This is from Linda, who says, "Hi, Mark. My tree went up on the 1st. Love the programme. Keep up the good work." Linda in West Sussex. Well, it's a lovely part of the world. And that tree is unbelievable. That's like something you'd see in a palace. I'd expect the Queen to have a tree like that. Well, as far as I'm concerned, Linda, you are my queen. Look at that. I'm not even sure there's space on the top for a star or a fairy. But, yeah, just very well balanced. I feel like I'm going to be on Bake Off now. I should give a little, Paul Hollywood-style description. Well balanced, lovely colour, excellent texture. Linda, great work. Alison says, "Merry Christmas, Mark. Love your show." Oh, this is exciting. This is like Narnia. Really different colours. Grey, silver, platinum. Excellent work. Very classy. Good job, Alison. Well, I've not been disappointed by any of the trees so far, so keep them coming in, Mark at gbnews.uk. It's time now for FAQs, frequently asked questions, in which we take a deep dive into a specific topic. Tonight, baldness. I occasionally get called Captain Comb-Over. But will there ever be a cure? Does it matter? Should blokes suffering so-called male pattern baldness just accept reality and shave it off, Bruce Willis style? What about the many thousands of women who suffer from hair loss too? Is there any hope? If so, what is the answer? Medication or the surgeon's knife? To discuss this, I'm delighted to welcome Michael May, FRCS, the principal of the Wimpole Clinic, which is dedicated to the science and practice of hair transplant and replacement. Mr. May is a fellow of the Royal College of Surgeons and has been helping patients for over 30 years. Michael was instrumental in developing the revolutionary technique of follicular unit transplant in the UK, which is now the mainstay of hair restoration surgery worldwide. And I'm delighted to say he joins me now. Hello, Michael.
Hello.
Why is
Can you hear?
hair? Yes, I can hear you loud and clear. Why is baldness such a problem? Why can't blokes just accept it when it's gone?
I think that's a difficult question. Most men do accept it, but a very small proportion, a relatively small proportion, find it very, very difficult and really want to do something about it. And I think recently, perhaps the number has increased. There are certainly now more men looking for treatments, looking for cures, and indeed coming to the surgery which we provide at the clinic.
And you've been at this for 30 years now. How much better are the technologies and the techniques now compared to when you started?
Well, that is the leading question. I started in the mid-late 80s, and hair transplanting, although surprisingly popular, I sometimes use the word bizarre. Sometimes the results were very, very strange. The doll's head look, round 4mm plugs which were taken from the back and transplanted. And unfortunately, we very, very rarely see that now. But I thought at the end of the 80s, going into the early 90s, that hair transplants would die out. I thought that a cure would come in. Minoxidil became available. Minoxidil still is a treatment, but hasn't by any means cured hair loss. But at that time, transplants did start to improve. And I think have taken us to the position we are now, where not a miracle, but the transplant can provide very good results, natural results. Men are more prepared to discuss it, tell their friends. And I think the public perception has grasped that. A man can have a transplant now and not keep it to himself, feel rather embarrassed about it. It is far more open to discussion.
So if you have severe baldness, you need surgery rather than medication, is that right?
I think so, yes. I mean, medication, there is a medication, a tablet called finasteride, which certainly does delay hair loss. It is well worthwhile, a younger man using finasteride to delay hair loss.
And that's preventative, is it? Is that preventative?
A preventative, yes. I think it would be looked upon as a preventative. There may be a little bit of regrowth, but it's very much used to delay, to prevent further loss. And this can be combined with a transplant to give perhaps the best possible result. Because there is one problem which remains with the hair transplant, and that is that we are not making new hair. We are taking hair from the back of the head where the permanent hair, the donor hair is, and relocating. And I say to every patient that I consult that the clue lies in the word relocating. We're taking some hair and putting it basically on top. So it is a finite resource. And the man who has extensive loss, or indeed is going on to extensive loss, is eventually going to run out of hair which can be transplanted. So there is a limitation.
So you take hair roots from the side and the back, and you put
mainly
them
from the
top.
back.
Mainly from the back.
That's right. Mainly from the back.
Once they've been relocated, will they produce hair in principle for the rest of your life? Because very bald people still produce hair at the back of their head, don't they? So does that continue at the top?
Yes, you'll have seen for yourself that a bald man retains a band of hair around the back and sides. And it was first remarked upon, a paper was written in the mid-50s, that hair taken from the back and placed on top, as long as those little roots were not damaged, would grow, and then grow for the rest of that man's life. The theory of donor dominance, the hair roots taken from the back continue to behave as if still at the back. They do not respond to the male hormone, to testosterone. They do not have receptors for testosterone, and therefore do not thin, miniaturize, and eventually disappear.
I see. So we become bald because of hormonal changes, but the hair roots on the side and at the back are not impacted by hormonal changes.
No, they don't. They're not. And hair loss is decided, but genetically, it's inherited from mother and father, comes down. I, for instance, still have a head of hair purely inherited from my family, whereas some men at quite an early age can lose hair on top. And it's probably these younger men who it can become quite difficult to cope with.
Listen, Doc, I'm 47 years of age. I've been nicknamed Captain Comb-Over or Curly Comb-Over by one or two viewers. How am I getting on at the age of 47? Do I need an appointment?
No, you don't. Sure? You've got a little bit of loss at the front. You've got the top. You've got a little bit of recession at the front, haven't you? You've gone back a little bit. Yeah, you've got a bit of typical male recession. And if you wanted, you could have a younger, not the hairline of an 18-year-old, but you could have a younger hairline transplanted. And that is what men are doing. Men, celebrities, minor celebrities, all types of men are coming in to have hairlines transplanted. And that is what we can do so much better now. It can be done in a very natural way.
So what about the procedure that you do? Is it day case? Can it be done in a day? How long would it take for somebody that was quite severely bald? Is it several procedures?
No, I mean, we're doing, it is a day case. It's done in our operating room. It's done under local anaesthesia. Some doctors use minor sedation, but certainly nothing like a general anaesthetic. And a procedure, a good-sized procedure, takes probably about 6 hours. So it's not it's not a 10-minute job, but it's done in the morning into the early afternoon.
And obviously, it's a bit of cash, I would have thought, but you're clearly very, very good at what you do. A few £1,000s, but if it goes right, it could be with you for life.
It is with you for life, and I think it's for a lot of men. I mean, as you say, it does cost something, but many men consider it money well spent. They have hair, let's say, at the front, the frontal hairline, and they're absolutely delighted.
I'll give your details at the end. I believe Daniel and my team have fired up a few celebrity photographs for your appraisal. Now, we don't know whether all of these celebrities have had work done, so it's more just a case of your judgment of their hairdo. Let's start with Wayne Rooney, who I think has been open about the fact that he's had surgery. Now, I believe that was before. I don't know if we've got an after. I think we've got an after there. Well done, team. So that you saw the before and the after. What's your appraisal of Wayne's hair procedure?
I think it's good. I mean, Wayne Rooney had it done when he was still quite a young man. He was certainly losing hair at the front. It obviously upset him. He had a transplant. I think it went very, very well. And indeed, for doctors doing transplants, it was extremely beneficial. Many men came in to have transplants, spurred on by Wayne Rooney.
The clock's against us. Can women have this procedure as well? Because female hair loss is a problem, and it's a very underreported problem.
It's true, women can, but that really is a much more difficult subject. If a man comes to see me, I can be with a fair degree of certainty say this is male pattern hair loss, and he has to decide whether he wants to do nothing, treatment, a transplant. A lady comes in with thinning, it is a medical problem. It has to be investigated, tests carried out, a diagnosis arrived at, and some ladies are then appropriate and can be helped by a transplant. But it is a far more complicated subject.
Michael, I've only got a couple of seconds. Let's have a quick look at the comedian Rob Brydon before and then after. Now, we don't know whether Rob's had work done, but does that look to be a good job to you?
I think that looks very, very nice. It's got a nice hairline, an appropriate hairline. They haven't tried to make him look 18. It looks natural. I would say that's a good hair transplant.
OK, and last but not least, again, we cannot prove that, Lewis Hamilton has had work done, but this is Lewis Hamilton before and then after alleged work.
Yeah.
See a difference, and is it good?
That's a difficult one, isn't it? I wouldn't be quite as didactic over this one. It's a different hairstyle, isn't it? The shape of the hairline looks pretty similar. So if he has had a hair transplant, I think he's had a very good one. He's had a nice, a natural result. I wouldn't be as certain over Lewis Hamilton, and I haven't heard anything through the grapevine.
Well, there you go. Well, in that case, perhaps it's all natural. Michael, it's been a privilege to have you on the show. I can direct my viewers to the Wimpole Clinic for more information about what you do. You are Michael May, FRCS, the principal of the Wimpole Clinic, who are dedicated to the science and practice of hair transplant and replacement. Lovely to have you on the show. And thanks for confirming that I'm only in recession and not much more, a bit like the British economy. So, lots more to come. In the news agenda, how do you feel about being jabbed more than once a year and possibly forever? And what about an IKEA sleepover? Find out more after this.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk. Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Just wonderful to have your company. Darren Stanton, the human lie detector, is live at 11, giving you tips on how to spot somebody that's fibbing. At 11 o'clock, I've got tomorrow's newspaper front pages as well. But it's time now to react to the big stories of the day in our news agenda with my amazing panel, political pundit Sophie Corcoran, comedian and columnist Nick Dixon, and another top comedian, author and broadcaster Dave Chawner. Now, we'll probably need a COVID vaccine every year. That's what Vaccine Minister Maggie Throop has suggested. Here's what she said.
What we've done now is pre-ordered vaccines for future years. I think it's something right. I think the public would expect us to be prepared for future years. It would be wrong of us not to be prepared. It really would. But
can you say whether we'll need them every year or not at this stage?
At the moment, it looks as if we probably will, looking at the way the virus has gone already.
The government have bought 114 million new doses, which are expected to be delivered within the next 2 years. But will a vaccine a year keep the virus away? Are you willing to get jabbed on such a regular basis? What do you think about this, Nick? Does it bother you that we're sort of being softened up for vaccines forever?
I think you know the answer to that, Mark. It bothers me immensely, yeah. I mean, look, if you want to get the flu jab every year, that's your choice. So as long as this is a choice in the same way, then I don't mind. But with what's happening across Europe and with what may happen here with, COVID passports, etc., lockdowns for the unvaccinated, I don't know if this is going to be a choice. If it's a choice to get jabbed a year if you want it, then fine. But if it's a mandatory thing, that's what concerns me. And also, Sajid Javid was talking about boosters every 3 months the other day. So will it even just be once a year, or will it be a constant top-up every few months?
Well, Dave, do you remember the good old days when a flu vaccine was voluntary? I mean, I remember getting a letter being offered mine a couple of years ago, and I thought, well, I'll take my chances with the flu.
Did you? Oh, Mark, that's reckless.
I've never had the flu.
How dare you?
I know, I'm terrible. I'm a flu denier.
You're sick of it. I think with these, I reckon whack a couple of extra things in this jab, like, sort of testosterone, maybe some steroids, and you could beef people up while you do it.
Is this a bit like when you're at Keith's newsagent?
Yeah.
And you've gone in for a bottle of White Lightning, and you're like, do you know what, while you're there, I'll have 20 Rothmans.
Got some Buckfast and some steroids. It'd be great. Great.
You've gone for joking as a comedian.
Right.
It's quite a good option. I forgot to do that. But how do you actually feel about it, Dave? Because do you really want a jab every year forever?
Yeah, don't hide behind your jokes.
If you want my honest answer, yeah, it's a jab. Yeah, fine.
Really?
I get flu
And you're
jab
not bothered
every year.
about all the complications and the side effects?
No. I mean, like, side effects, like, I had a bit of a sore arm.
No, but the increasing links to myocarditis don't bother you.
I mean, what, there's 70 cases out of the 150 million vaccines that have been given. I'll take my chances.
All right.
I mean, I suppose
that wasn't very...
I can broker the peace between the comedians, Sophie, by saying that perhaps the answer is freedom of choice. Because then, you know, if there are, I mean, and always with vaccines, there are potential side effects. So if there are side effects, you haven't mandated it, which means it's personal choice, and then it's not a problem.
Yeah, I do think we should go for personal choice, and I do think these boosters should be offered. Does my age group need it? No. I've had the first vaccine, I've had the second vaccine, I will not be getting a third vaccine.
And why is that?
Well, if you look at the flu vaccine, my age group don't get the flu vaccine. We don't need it. And that should be the same case as this booster vaccine. I think it was around 96% of my age group, so 16 to 24, have already got COVID antibodies. We don't need a booster vaccine. I don't need one booster vaccine. I don't need two booster vaccines. I don't need a booster vaccine every year. I don't get a flu vaccine because although I can still catch the flu, I'm not vulnerable to that virus, and therefore it's probably better for me to build up natural immunity. It should be the same way of this COVID vaccine. My age group aren't vulnerable, therefore we don't need the booster. So I don't understand why they're rolling this out to everybody as a blanket thing. And it certainly shouldn't be that way every year, and let's not even talk about mandatory vaccines right
See, that's
now.
an incredibly sensible thing you said, but Joe Rogan said that. He got attacked by the entire internet just for saying what you said.
The entire internet?
He did. For saying
Every man in a... I know what you mean.
He got massively attacked for just saying that young people probably don't need the vaccine.
Well, people don't like common sense these days, so...
That's nonsense. I think
well,
that...
what is not sensical about the fact that my age group don't need the vaccine, therefore we should not get the vaccine? I think that's pretty...
Yeah. What I would say is I'm not an expert. I don't have the PhD. I don't have the professorship. So I would go with the people that do have those. And if they say that that's a good idea, then yeah, they're probably...
I cannot stand that phrase. I tell you this now for all of Lord's mercy. I cannot stand that phrase. Oh, you know, you're not a scientist. You do not have to be a scientist to have the right to control what you put in your body or not. And everybody has a right to say, I don't want this vaccine because, and say, you shouldn't have that opinion, you shouldn't say that because you're not a scientist. No, but I'm a human being and I have a right to decide what I put in my body.
Of course you do, but then there are levels, there's levels of expertise. If you need to get brain surgery, don't go to Keith's corner shop and get him doing it. I would probably get an expert opinion on doing that.
My concern with the idea that we'll have vaccines every year, possibly several times a year, forever, and with the government ordering these vaccines many years in advance, is that it escapes the important national conversation about our health. You know, why not an investment in tackling obesity and wider public health?
I don't think you got to choose. I think it's a very good point, very well made. And actually, yeah, I think alongside this, we do need to look at health and good health and mental health and everything else wrapped up in that. And I think that's a great point. Yeah, let's do it alongside it.
But look what we've done with lockdown. We've manufactured a cancer crisis. Obesity has gotten worse. Mental health has gotten worse. Wait lists are sky high, all in the name of public health.
Yeah, a lot of people have pointed this out, that you've got people with other health problems, maybe they're obese and things like that, and that's unfortunate. But you've got them saying, oh, take endless vaccines. Whereas, yeah, what about people who prefer a more holistic approach to health? Personally, I don't drink, I don't smoke, don't do drugs, go to the gym a lot, work out a lot, as you can tell, Mark. And I think that's, what about that? What about that approach to health?
I can only say that if you lived near Keith's newsagent, he wouldn't make much money, would he? The poor man would close overnight.
Keith, if you're watching, I expect a discount next time, mate.
Yeah,
right?
literally.
I mean, is it generational? Is there a gap there between what young people think and what old people think, perhaps, Dave? Because, I mean, the view expressed by Sophie is not going to be one viewed by a pensioner.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to be 60 in 28 years' time. So it's one of those things that I think that's very much got to come into play. And I think that's why, I think what Sophie said was actually really important, of like, if you're 19 and if you're 90, you're probably going to have a different viewpoint on it. And I think that's got to come into the mix.
Well, there you go. My personal view is that freedom fixes everything. That's the topic of my big opinion piece, which is now on our Twitter feed, crafted by Carl in our digital department. You can find that at GBNews. I did the whole piece wearing a face covering just to make a point. But what's your view? Mark at gbnews.uk. Coming up, I'm very excited. It's the human lie detector, Darren Stanton, plus tomorrow's front pages. Here's the weather.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello, rather changeable conditions this weekend. There will be outbreaks of rain at times for just about all of us at some point. However, it does tend to turn drier and brighter for most on Sunday, if feeling on the chilly side. Now back to the here and now, a number of weather fronts skirting across southern counties of England. Meanwhile, this weather front waiting in the wings will bring a thicker cloud and outbreaks of showery rain in from the northwest. This may well give some sleet or snow over the higher ground of the north. All in all, quite a lot of cloud around overnight tonight, and that will help keep temperatures up, at least not falling too low. We could just see a touch of frost in more rural parts of the west, where we do see clearing skies towards the end of the night. So a little bit of a chilly start for some tomorrow, but not as cold as some recent mornings. However, as the wind starts to become brisker through the course of the day, it will feel decidedly chilly, even where we do get a glimpse of sunshine. There will be a good deal of cloud around throughout the day on Saturday, a little bit of sunshine here and there, but further outbreaks of showery rain, and again, some of that will be on the wintry side, particularly over higher ground. Now, as we head through Saturday evening and overnight, this showery rain continues to track its way eastwards, not clearing the east completely. Further showery outbreaks here, but elsewhere tending to turn drier as the night wears on. So it will be a dry, a bright, but a chilly start to the day for some on Sunday morning, particularly across more northern and western parts of the country. So as we start the day on Sunday, still a good deal of cloud across central and eastern areas, still some showers feeding through on that brisk north to northwesterly wind, but there will be brighter skies elsewhere, which will spread to most parts by the end of the day. So Sunday for most looking like the better day of the weekend for getting out and about, but turning unsettled again into next week with some very windy conditions on Tuesday.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
I've got a fabulous final hour of the show lined up. Meskana has just brought in the newspaper front pages, so we'll be getting to those very, very shortly, in fact, in 2 minutes' time. Plus, my panel will return to the sofa for our news agenda. It's always a bit more fun in the last hour of the show. I'm determined to make it that way. How do you feel about sleeping overnight in an IKEA? Could you live in an IKEA? That's something that's in the news tonight. I look forward to getting into that one. We've got the Great British Game Show coming up as well, and that's a game based around a big story in the news. And today the game is based on Secret Santa gifts for under a tenner. You're going to love it. It's called Lapland or Poundland, and we'll play that at 11:45. Also, is the customer always right? And will young people ever get on the housing ladder? And a young man who placed a bomb where nature didn't intend. You won't want to miss any of that. But first, the headlines with Karen.
Thank you, Mark. These are your latest headlines. The stepmother of Arthur Labinjo Hughes has been jailed for life for the 6-year-old's murder. 32-year-old Emma Tustin will serve a minimum of 29 years in prison for starving, poisoning and killing the little boy in June 2020. Arthur's father, 29-year-old Thomas Hughes, was sentenced to 21 years for manslaughter. Authorities in Michigan are searching for the parents of a boy accused of killing 4 students at a secondary school in the US. Earlier, prosecutors charged Jennifer and James Crumbley with 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter. Their lawyer says that they left town for their own safety, but are returning to face arraignment. Their son, 15-year-old Ethan, was charged as an adult with murder, attempted murder and terrorism for the shooting on Tuesday. Prosecutors say the parents' actions went far beyond negligence.
Further investigation revealed that the 6-hour 9mm handgun purchased by James Crumbley was stored unlocked in a drawer in James and Jennifer's bedroom. The notion that a parent could read those words and also know that their son had access to a deadly weapon that they gave him is unconscionable, and I think it's criminal.
75 further cases of the COVID-19 Omicron variant have been identified by the UK Health and Security Agency in England. It comes as the World Health Organization warns that Omicron is very transmissible, but urged people not to panic. Speaking earlier, the WHO chief scientist said the majority of cases they'd investigated saw mild symptoms, although it was too early to declare it a weaker strain.
There's always a lag between infection progressing to severe disease. So as you know, when you see a surge of infections, it's 2 weeks later that you start seeing that surge in hospitalizations and deaths. So I think we need to wait. Let's hope it's milder.
Long-serving director of cricket Martin Moxon, head coach Andrew Gale and the entire coaching team have left Yorkshire Cricket Club. It follows an investigation into claims by Azim Rafiq that he suffered racist abuse while at the club. Yorkshire Chair Lord Patel says significant change is required at the club to regain trust. Star of stage and screen, Sir Anthony Sher, has died. He was 72. The Royal Shakespeare Company said he had been diagnosed with terminal cancer earlier this year. He won the Olivier Award for his portrayal of Richard III in 1985 and starred in a number of films, including Shakespeare in Love. You are right up to date now. Back to Mark Dolan tonight.
Thanks, Karen. It's exactly 4 minutes past 11. Uncensored in a moment with the human lie detector, Darren Stanton. But first, this. Yes, I've got tomorrow's front pages, and they will be the dominant theme of the final hour of the show. Let's start with the weekend. UK red alert over Omicron ability to hit double jabbed. Half of UK's early Omicron infections happened despite 2 vaccine doses, health chiefs say. And the weekend there, indulging in what they enjoy best, which is Project Fear, which I will not have, not on my watch. Let's go to the Independent now. Tory donors firm took millions in furlough cash despite profit of 75 million. And Russia, Ukraine and mounting tensions. A Ukrainian soldier close to the line of separation with pro-Russia rebels in Donetsk yesterday. The Daily Mirror, another BBC star in a cash scandal. Craig Revel-Horwood appeared in an advert that broke strict BBC rules. The Strictly Judge's famous catchphrase, fabulous, was used by Dreams to plug beds in a money-spinning campaign. BBC stars are not allowed to mimic their on-air roles in promotional work. There you go, a bit of scandal for the Bee, but these stars, they really seem to be on their uppers. They're having to advertise everything, aren't they? They'll turn up to the opening of an envelope. How about the Daily Telegraph? Pestering women in street to be outlawed, plans to make public sexual harassment an offence in the wake of the murder of Sarah Everard. GPs to drop over 75s health checks for jabs, another example of the NHS indulging in a race to the bottom. Boots are in line for a sale with a £5 billion price tag. Do you think the investors will get a £2 voucher off a Boots No. 7 product when they actually buy the shop? Who knows? Are you a fan of Boots? I love Boots. I just go in there and have a wander around, to be honest with you. I just feel happy there. It's a bit like John Lewis. Just me? Also, Wembley fan abducted boy in wheelchair. That's a shocking story, and we'll try to cover that story this weekend. Shocking scenes during the Euros, and this anecdote's really surprising. Football faces its most radical overhaul of security since the Hillsborough disaster, after a review revealed the full horror of the Euro 2020 final, including a ticketless fan abducting a boy in a wheelchair to push through security. You couldn't make it up. That is chutzpah in the extreme and a terrible crime. Let's have a look at the Times now. Sunak plan to slash taxes. Income tax could be cut by 2p. Tories also consider VAT reduction before the general election. Bring it on, I say. It's time to stimulate the economy and kickstart our recovery. Recipe for success, Giles Corran with Nestor Malsidi, who fled the Democratic Republic of the Congo for Glasgow, where the Scottish Refugee Council supported him as he trained as a chef. He now works at Bibendum in London, which has 2 Michelin stars. The Refugee Councils of Britain are one of the Times Christmas charities. A lovely photo, an impressive young man, this chef. Nice to see a picture of my good friend Giles Corran on the front of the Times. And Giles is, by some distance, the best thing in that paper. How about The Guardian? Act now. No time to wait for Omicron data, say experts. Of course they don't want to wait. They want to lock you up. They want to put a mask on your face. They want you to socially distance, and they want to see more economic and societal damage. Ministers have been warned they cannot wait for a new research on the Omicron variants and must act now to prevent a potentially very significant wave of infections. Jake, back to me if you can. Here's the thing. We've had this all along since the beginning of the pandemic. Act now, no time to wait, say experts. Well, I think we do wait, and we learn more about this variant before we cause more damage to people's lives and the economy. Already, the fear around this new variant, and of course the virus will change every 10 minutes anyway, that's what viruses do. The fear around it means that so many businesses have cancelled their Christmas parties, so many groups have cancelled dinner engagements, drinks dues, you name it, which is already going to destroy a beleaguered hospitality industry. Complete disaster, and we've got to stop the fear. Next up, we've got the Mail. And the Daily Mail are running with this one. PM, we'll find who failed Arthur so badly. Boris Johnson vowed last night to leave no stone unturned to learn from the failure to save the life of Arthur Labinjo Hughes. Quite the most tragic and appalling story. There really are no words for what happened to that little boy. The Daily Express are covering the same horrific story. Never let evil stepmum taste freedom again. How right the Express are. Last but not least, light relief as always, The Star. Dwarves, we're really not happy. Tall actors muscle in on little stars' jobs. Dwarves are getting the short end of the stick as tall actors bid for their pint-sized parts in Christmas plays and pantos. How could they? Shocking stuff, lots more to come. It's time for this. It's time for Uncensored, in which we tackle the dark underbelly of the news agenda. Tonight, just how truthful are Boris Johnson or Keir Starmer when they're at the dispatch box for Prime Minister's questions? Did the PM throw an illegal Christmas party last year at the height of lockdown? And closer to home, did your husband or your wife really have an urgent business meeting to attend to? Or were they playing away? And was it your flatmate that ate that last sausage you'd been looking forward to in the fridge? Just how can you spot when someone is lying? Who better to ask than TV's real-life human lie detector, Darren Stanton. Hi, Darren.
Hey, Mark. How are you? Good to see you again.
Great to see you on the show. We know, don't we, that a politician's lying because their lips are moving.
Absolutely.
Are politicians good at disguising their lies? Do they get better at it?
Sadly, well, I say sadly, even though they're trained, but I get asked this question quite a lot. And the truth is that even though they're trained in terms of how to deliver information to the media, because they've got the same sort of neurology as the rest of the world, they actually don't do any better. So, you know, there's so much material that I see on a daily basis from politicians delivering information. You know, I've got reams and reams of notes of various tells on certain politicians.
Well, of course. So now let's look at the genders. Do women lie in a different way to men?
Yeah, it's a great question. So men are actually 8 times more likely to lie than women. Men tend to lie more about status. So they'll say, yeah, I'm an airline pilot, or, you know, I've got a Lamborghini. They'll lie more about things that make them seem powerful.
All right, I've got a big Christmas tree at home.
Exactly. Classic one. That's a big tell. And then also women will tend to lie more to protect the feelings of other people. So it seems to be more of a kind of reasonable way to lie, but predominantly men do tend to lie 8 times more.
That's very, very disappointing on the part of the male species. So what are the basic clues that someone is lying?
Well, we all lie every day. So statistically, they say that we lie and we are lied to up to 200 times a day. And they're the small, sort of innocuous lies, you know. So you may have a family member say, you know, what do you think about this new top or my new hair? And even though internally we think it looks dreadful, we're going to say, I love it, you look fantastic. And that's to avoid social awkwardness. But in terms of the stuff that I do, it all comes down to emotion. So when someone's maybe been cheating, or they stole something, or, you know, they maybe lied to the media, basically, and when they feel they're about to be discovered, the brain goes into a situation called detection apprehension. So the more they try to focus and sell the lie, the more haywire their actual body language goes. So, for example, some key ones are people will tend to blink double or triple when they suddenly become very anxious about being discovered. So blink rate's a big one. And also the lips will go quite pale, and that's the body's fight or flight syndrome, where it's pulling blood away from the face to almost like run away. So there's a couple of key ones that you can look out for.
What about the hands? What do the hands do if someone's lying, Darren?
Another great question. So people that are even quite animated, what they'll tend to do is they'll become less animated. So you'll notice that someone will also overcompensate eye contact, because generally we look at someone in the eyes between 3 and 5 seconds. And that's because that person is trying to convince you that they're being honest. So most people think a liar can't look you in the eye, but the truth is they can, and they will overcompensate that eye contact. And the interesting thing to note is that, you know, prolonged eye contact is generally reserved for maybe romantic partners or family or children. And so if someone prolongs eye contact, they're either going to kiss you or kill you, because generally, you know, if you're not in a romantic relationship, you'll generally see people that are going to be aggressive. The first line of that is the prolonged eye contact. And it's this idea where people say, oh, what are you looking at? So prolonged eye contact is a key one as well.
They're either going to kiss you or kill you. That definitely sounds like life round at my place.
Christmas Day.
That's Christmas Day round at the Dolans. And Darren, you're a hypnotist as well. Is there any extent to which liars are trying to hypnotise the person they're lying to? Is that part of it with the eye contact?
Not specifically hypnosis, but if someone kind of convinces themselves of, you know, something's the truth. So, for example, if someone is saying, I went to the gym where really, you know, I've cheated on you, or I've been somewhere I wasn't supposed to be. If a person rehearses that in their mind quite a few times, when they get challenged on that, because the brain's almost imagined it quite a few times, it won't give off a lot of the signals and tells. So there are a few loopholes in some of the systems in terms of spotting deception. So the key one is for people to mentally rehearse what they think they're going to be challenged on.
Darren, you work in security, you're an in-demand keynote speaker, you're a broadcaster, an author as well, and journalist. How did you acquire this remarkable skill of being able to spot a liar?
Again, I'm ex-police, so on a daily basis, you're pretty much talking to people that are lying to you. So I think most people that maybe are in law enforcement or the police watching, you tend to develop a bit of a sixth sense. But I think it's all about, aside from the sort of psychological things that I've studied, I've also had a real passion for connecting with people. And I think, I've learned quite quickly within a few minutes to establish their baseline. So everyone's got a sort of baseline behaviour that they operate on. And when they're stressed, a lot of these things go haywire. So really, it's just a passion for learning about psychology. And it's like most things in life that whatever we've got a passion for, we tend to get quite good at.
So clearly, it's not a good idea to lie to a police officer, A, because that breaks the law, but B, they're quite good at detecting it anyway. Are there others who it's harder to lie to? I've always thought you can't lie to your mum.
Absolutely. I mean, close family members, I've sadly lost my parents now, but I couldn't get away with anything. My mum would spot me straight away. So certainly close family members are generally the people that, no matter how well trained you are, you kind of can't get away with it. Even the most subtlest of things, close family members or partners will say, what's going on, and they can spot that.
So what about politicians? If we look at Boris Johnson, I mean, I won't ask you to say whether you're a fan or not a fan, but he's been accused of someone that's a little economic with the truth. Do you think Boris is a liar? Not based upon your judgment of his policies, but just his demeanour. Is he shifting?
Absolutely. Yeah. There's no consistency. There's no what we call congruity in his actual way he delivers information. I mean, in the past, I've seen interviews. I think it goes back to when Michael Howard sacked him, and he didn't even defend the fact that he was called a liar. He just sort of did his Columbo impression and bumbled along with it and just sidestepped it like he always does. A key strategy that he employs is to basically just kind of laugh it off and sidestep, the sort of accusation. And it's amazing how he continues to do that strategy. There's not a lot of journalists that really pin him down and try and get the answer out of him.
Have you deployed your remarkable skills on a personal level? Have you been able to get people out of your life that you discovered were dishonest? Is it a bit of a superpower, Darren Stanton?
I think it's one of these things that once the genie's out of the bottle, you can't put it back in. So yeah, sometimes people say to me, "I'd love to do what you do," and if they study it, they can. But sometimes, you maybe don't want to know the truth. So if you're giving somebody a present, for example, at Christmas, and they tell you they love it, but really you know that they hate it, so you can kind of spot those things quite easily. I had a situation actually a few years ago. I just treated myself to a new car. And my friend had been visiting me. I'd known for about 15, 20 years, really good friend. And in the morning, I'd come out and my car had been keyed all the way down the side. And fortunately, I had cameras. And it was my friend. And out of pure jealousy, I rang him up and says, "Oh, how's it going, Steve?" We'll call him Steve, in case he's watching. But I said, "Yeah, how's it going?" He's like, "Yeah, not bad." I said, "Did you have a good night last night?" He says, "Yeah." And I just suddenly switched and says, "Why did you key my car, Steve?" And he started to stutter. And I says, "Please don't, because I've watched you. And obviously the way you've just responded tells me straight away that you've done it, even though the fact I've got CCTV, because an innocent person, they would go straight on the defensive. They wouldn't sort of stutter the way that Boris does, for example. He tends to do that quite a lot as well.
I'm really sorry to hear about that damage to your car. Did he pay up in the end, and did he fess up?
He did, and he paid up as well, which was a good one. But the friendship was obviously over, because once trust's gone, it's difficult to go back, isn't it?
Darren, how can people find out more about what you do?
Okay, so I'm on Twitter at Darren Stanton. My website, which is tvhumanliedetector.com. And then in Instagram, it's TV Human Lie Detector 1. So, I also sort of do a lot of live events all around the UK. And as you've already mentioned, I'm a sort of professional keynote speaker. So I can be booked to go out to companies and various events and do some interactive stuff with people. So it's a fascinating topic.
Well, we'd love to have you back on the show really soon and in the studio. No sweaty palms, no defensive body language, no blinking. You're a star.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure, Mark. Thank you very much.
Brilliant stuff. Wasn't that interesting? And that is a superpower, isn't it? Being able to spot a liar. Lots more to come. Before midnight, we're going to play another Great British Game Show. That's right. It's always a part of the programme you look forward to. We play a game based around a news story of the day. And today, can you guess which items in Santa's sack cost less than a tenner? We're going to play a game of Lapland or Poundland. This isn't just thrown together, you know. But after this, in the news agenda, my panel are back. So many stories to get through, and I'm determined to get through every single one. Will young people ever get on the property ladder? Is the customer always right? Plus, a young man that put a bomb where nature didn't intend. Let's hope he had a good night. We'll discuss all of that after this.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
I'm back. Yes, indeed. I'm like Doctor Who. I basically transport myself around the studio. I hope you're enjoying the special effects that we've rolled out for our Christmas shows. Now, listen, we're very excited because at the beginning of the show, we asked you to send in photos of your Christmas decorations. That's because the Norwegians have sent the Brits a lovely Christmas tree, which goes into Trafalgar Square in central London. This year, it looked a bit emaciated and weedy. I'm sure it'll be fine once it's been dolled up. And of course, it's a wonderful tradition that goes back to the war. But I knew you could do better, and you have. So let's have a look at some of your brilliant work. This is Mandy's Christmas tree. Hi, Mandy. Now, I do like that. Lots of red and gold. That's very plush. And Mandy, it goes with your curtains. So that's very, very coordinated. Excellent job. And by the way, what a nice leather sofa you've got as well. It looks a bit more comfortable than ours. How about this one from Derek? Hi, Mark. Feeling all Christmassy with the tree up. Loving the show as always. That's very clean. That's a clean tree, Derek. I do like that one. And I think that might be a permanent tree, which means it probably comes out of storage every year, which is very environmentally friendly. So well done, you. I like the star at the top as well. And your fancy blinds. Derek, you're getting it done. How about Debbie, who says, jingle all the way. have a fabulous Christmas. Well, thank you. You too, Debbie. I like your tree, a nice sort of silver theme there, plenty of lights. And there appears to be some sort of backlight or a light at the bottom of the tree going up, which I think is really creative. I've not seen that before. And I think you've even got some little prezzies under the tree, have you? Or certainly some figures anyway. There's a snowman and a dome and a few other bits and bobs. So great job, Debbie. And a different Mandy says from Mark and Mandy in Leeds. Keep up the great work. We've got so many viewers in West Yorkshire and it's lovely to have you on board, Mark and Mandy. Do tell your friends. So we've got a tree and then we've got two gorgeous dogs. Now, do we know the breed, panel? What do we think?
Sausage dog?
Oh, I think, well, one
Russell.
of them looks to be maybe a Dachshund, but I'm not great with breeds.
That'll be a black and tan miniature sausage dog, and I reckon a Jack Russell.
And a Jack
he's
Russell.
got it.
Well, they are gorgeous. Mark and Mandy, you've got such lovely dogs, and I hope they're not doing anything to the tree, such as relieving themselves. I don't think so. Although the Jack Russell does look a little bit like he's got that look in his eyes. No, that's a gorgeous tree. Now, what I like about that, it's minimalism. You've just gone for red and white, and that is really, really tasteful. And you've also got a really nice, a sort of rather traditional Father Christmas figure in the background as well. So Mark and Mandy, thank you. Look, we'll try to get to more of your Christmas decorations before the end of the show. Thank you so much for sending them in. But let's get through our news agenda now with the big stories of the day and tomorrow's newspaper front pages with political pundit Sophie Corcoran, comedian and columnist Nick Dixon, broadcaster, author, comedian and commentator Dave Chawner. Now, is it any wonder so many younger people are fed up with the establishment? Home ownership among 25 to 34-year-olds has almost halved since its peak in the 1980s because the age group tends not to have enough savings. A report from the Resolution Foundation suggests young adults also don't have the earnings to buy a typical first-time buyer property in their region. Clearly, not everyone can rely on the bank of mum and dad. Dave, are you anticipating getting on the housing ladder anytime soon?
Genuinely never. I can't even afford to buy a parking space, let alone an actual property. I think I'm going to ask for a gazebo for Christmas because that's the nearest I'm ever going to get to owning property. It's madness. And I think you know what? I genuinely think there's a bit of a ripple effect of this, that like if people own properties, I think they look after them and the local area a lot more than if you're renting and you're just like, the landlord can deal with that.
Yeah. I mean, is it an aspiration to own your own home? Is it necessary? In Germany and France and elsewhere on the continent, people rent.
See, that is one of the things that we've said. Like, if the washing machine breaks or whatnot, then we'll be like amazed because we don't have one. But we were, generally with white goods and stuff, you get the landlord to sort it out. Whereas, I do think that we're going to do the continental thing and just rent for life, which,
And does that bother you?
It does annoy me. I would love to own a house. I would love to be able to put up posters. I'm 32 and I can't put up posters. That really peeves me.
Yeah.
You're also too old for posters.
That's
the paradox there.
Yeah, I think it's time for you to shred those little mixed pictures of yours.
Oh, God. It's a Bangkok Starry Night, just classic.
Those well-thumbed images of Taylor Swift.
Pamela Anderson.
How about you, Nick? Look, global superstardom beckons.
Yes.
Do you sort of, does it remain an aspiration, property ownership?
Absolutely. I'm trying to buy a house in London, but of course when I say buy a house in London, I mean 25% of a one-bedroom flat with a housing scheme. That's the dream for my generation, Mark. Just a quarter of a dump. That's all I'm looking for. Just because that's what we've got to be realistic now. That's one way you can do it, because you do get obsessed with housing in your 30s and property. I used to be on Tinder, now I'm all over Zoopla. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's quite similar. You swipe, you get there, you find one you like, you get there. It's nothing like the picture. It's smaller than you thought. Too many people have been there already. But the point is, Mark,
TMI.
I'll stop doing that bit. But the point is, we do want to have people owning homes, young people, because you invest more in society than we see these people now intent on tearing down our whole society, tearing down statues all the time. If you have a house, you tend to want to not tear things down as much.
Yeah, you want to preserve.
Exactly. And I also think it makes you more vulnerable to radical ideas like Corbyn with his, big property taxes, or the WEF saying you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. I'm all about let's own something and be happy, ideally a house.
A quarter of a house.
A quarter of a house.
Yeah.
I was just
How about
that.
you, Sophie?
I actually think my biggest goal in life is to own a house. That is my number one goal. That's why I work so many hours, and that's just what I do. Ever since I was 16, been working and saving up for a house. And
Those heady days of 3 years ago.
yeah, I have a decent amount of savings in my house. I think that I could probably leave university, get a job and buy a house. Why? Because I've worked for it. And I know the fact that the housing market is tough, but it's not going to change. And I still want my house.
But would you not argue that it's proportionally further out of the reach of young people than it would have been 3, 4, 5 decades ago?
Oh, yeah. God, my parents basically bought their house for like 50p.
Yeah.
And obviously we don't have that chance.
Somebody on a school teacher's salary, a police officer, anything, a street cleaner, you name it, regular jobs would lead you to owning a property back in the day, and now they don't.
I think regular jobs, owning a property while you're young, is almost impossible. But owning a property in the long term, absolutely possible. But I think we always discuss the housing crisis and we go the same sort of direction, the government needs to build on the green belt, we need to build more houses. Well, actually, the thing we need to do is stop overpopulation by allowing every Tom, Dick and Harry to come into our country.
And what about, and that's the view of many people that watch this show, and that's what they always say, there are too many people here and there are too many people that need public services, that need accommodation. But even if you stopped all migration into the country, there still aren't enough properties, are there? I mean, what about a policy of build, build, build? Weren't you disappointed that the Conservatives, to whom you are, I guess, sort of philosophically quite, closely aligned,
yes,
they've watered down their plans for house building this Parliament?
I think it's quite interesting that the Conservatives tend to go, I think they call it NIMBY and YIMBY.
That's right,
but
not in my backyard.
I would change it, and a lot of them would say that they're, yes, in my backyard, I want to build houses, but they're not quite like that. They're sort of like, not in my backyard, but yes, in your backyard. So we can build houses as long as they're with you, and you're all living in cramped houses where you've got not enough schools for every area, not enough GPs for every area. It's house on top of house on top of house while we live in our lovely countryside. I think that's the philosophy that we've got here. I think one of the biggest disappointments was in Cheshire and Amersham when the Lib Dems ran on a sort of, not in my backyard thing that was
because the Tories had very ambitious house building plans for that area.
Yeah, and the Lib Dems didn't want it. But if you look at the demographic of those areas, the richer areas don't want houses built near them.
So what's the answer? Build anyway?
Build anyway. Like, we need to have people in houses. And we also need to stop migration being as high as it is. We're having, loads of people coming in. We've got to find houses for them, but we also need to find houses for our own people first.
Dave, you're pulling a querulous look there.
I find it a bit of a tenuous link to bringing it back to migration all the time. I don't really think that it is. I don't think that the two are related.
But if demand goes up and supply doesn't increase, then the house prices increase. Where are we getting demand from? Yes, we get demand.
I guess
from,
you'd
population.
include our membership of the European Union over 4 decades as part of that. With a lot of people coming
people
from across
come in and out.
the continent into the UK.
I don't want to go all Brexit on you, Dave, but to say there's no link between immigration and housing is insane because, of course, you have way more people in the country. It's harder to find housing, surely.
And we're not, populating our country significantly through natural population. Most of it comes through artificial population. According to the studies, about 56% of the growth in population come from net migration. So all of those people are coming in and not enough people are coming out. And that's going to be about 73% sort of between 2018 and sort of later this year. And then by 2043, almost 84% of the change in population isn't going to come through artificial means, so, giving birth to kids. It's going to come through migration, and we've got to stop it because we can't fit these people in the houses that we have in this country. And there's only so much you can build. There really is, and we've just got to tackle this issue head on. We always talk about the supply side issues, but we never talk about the demand side problems that is coming from migration. And I
was impressed you had all those stats. I'm just riffing it. That was impressive.
I mean, they're all made up, like 100%.
I mean, it's just a spot of Googling, really.
Yeah.
We just have an expert.
Well, look, Dave doesn't see the connection, and Sophie does. What's your view, Mark, at gbnews.uk? I really feel very strongly that young people need to have that aspiration of home ownership. They need to have a stake in the economy. Otherwise, why should they bother engaging with it at all? And I do think that if we don't deal with this problem, young people will be inclined to vote for a hard left populist, somebody that makes Jeremy Corbyn look like Margaret Thatcher. That's the risk. Now, retail gospel says the customer is always right, but not in this case. A 60-year-old Tops Tiles manager lost his job after ushering out an aggressive customer who was abusive towards his staff. While gesturing for the customer to leave, Gary Hardy accidentally splashed tea on the customer's face. It's a very British accident, isn't it? Sadly, he was then fired, but a tribunal in Newcastle ruled that Gary was unfairly dismissed and that the firm did not consider the need to stand up to members of the public. So is the customer always right? Dave, what do you think?
Can I just point out, I love the phrase, accidentally splashed some tea in his face. I mean, I think we can all read between those lines there, really. We're not idiots.
Yeah. Well, apparently he was so agitated and he gestured to this guy to go away. I mean, look, we don't need to get into the weeds of this story. I'm really sorry this guy's lost his job. But now the company involved have actually lost the tribunal. He will get compensation. The customer was not always right.
Right, and I've worked in retail for many years, and I can confirm the customer is not always right. The customer is often very annoying. But so I'm torn on this, Mark, because the principle of the customer is always right is what makes capitalism work. So the fact that you have some power as a consumer is why we have amazing things like Uber and things like this. And it's why one could argue things like the NHS are flawed, if I'm allowed to say that, because the customer doesn't have any power, see, because it's done through taxation. So I do sort of believe in the customer's always right in terms of that giving you the best possible service. However, the customer is also really annoying. And now the customer on the internet has been given this terrible power because you've got things like TripAdvisor. So my parents had a little restaurant and someone can just say something completely false and horrific on TripAdvisor and just give them a horrible review. And it happens if you sell things on eBay, whatever. You can give someone a horrible review and you have this terrible power, even if it's not true. We've even seen it in comedy. I mean, our friend Leo Kersey the other day got someone a terrible review for his comedy, in a sense. Someone complained to a club about things he hadn't actually said and tried to get him cancelled. So I'm torn on the issue.
The one that annoys me about TripAdvisor, and God bless him, my dad used to do this, and this really used to annoy me, that you'd have the waiter or waitress come over and say, is everything all right with the meal? And you go, oh, it's lovely. And then they go away, you wait until I get on TripAdvisor. You're like, no, say it now. Like
Exactly. Be straight about it. Sophie, you work in a customer-facing business, don't you, when you're not on the box?
Yes, I do. I actually have a normal job. So I work at KFC, and I have worked at KFC.
The Kentucky Fried Chicken?
Yes.
The Colonel is your boss?
The Colonel is my...
Have you met the Colonel, by the way?
He's dead.
Oh, no, that's terrible. My thoughts go out to his family. It's a difficult time.
Keep it light.
Okay.
I think probably in the 1950s or 60s, he popped his clogs, didn't he? The great man.
To be fair, I don't know. And we do celebrate his birthday, but I can't remember. I think it was like his 179th last time I remember.
I assume someone would come in pretending to be him, like Father Christmas, but it's the Colonel.
Yeah, or Ronald McDonald, who I believe is still going strong.
But in terms of this question, no.
The customer is not always right.
Theoretically, according to the rules of customer service, the customer is always right, but absolutely not. No.
You're not having it. So do you put your foot down with those rude customers?
Oh, we've had some real stories, Mark. OK, so one of the KFCs I used to work in, I don't work there now, we had a customer come in and jump over the counter and try and attack people and throw stuff everywhere. One woman, she came in, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this because we're Ofcom, she called everyone an SLAG and was like, I'm going to drag you around the town centre, over a bit of chicken. Some woman's threatened to drag me over the counter because we were closed, and I said, no, I can't serve you, we're closed. So she wanted to, naturally, as you do, want to drag someone over the counter. So no, the customer is not always right.
I remember working in a shop.
That's terrible.
One of the customers spat on a young woman, and this was in an independent bookshop. So this is how crazy customers get. Imagine that.
Well, when you're waiting for the latest Harry Potter, what are you going to do?
My favourite one...
Those books are very readable.
And when you've been asked the other thing is you get asked the same question. When you've been asked where the toilet is 100 times in a day, you go completely insane. And that's not really their fault, but it's just the nature of it.
My favourite one was when they used to complain about the prices to me, and I was like, lads, do I look like the Colonel?
Yeah. And you should have said the Colonel's dead.
If I was the Colonel, I would not be here. because I would be rich.
That's
right?
exactly
I would
right.
not be earning £6 an hour. But
Well,
no,
the-
I love my job. I absolutely love it.
You do, yeah. The story, or those stories about the abuse you've received is absolutely reprehensible. And
I think that's what most of us customers facing people do, and it's
yeah.
because of these philosophies that the customer is always right. And a lot of us get to the point where we can't defend ourselves, or we just have to stand there and be shouted at day after day after day. And it used to bring like young people, like my age, kids, like we were in sixth form, to like tears like every single night, but we couldn't do anything because of these ludicrous policies that the customer is always right. But at the end of the day, we're human beings.
the customer should have some respect. There you go, especially if they're lucky enough to have Sophie
I'm
serving
great.
them.
I'm actually a weapon.
I think there's something
Can't
quite...
believe you didn't bring some KFC treats with you tonight, buddy.
There's something quite sad about the mental picture of someone crying into a bargain bucket. That really upsets me.
Yeah,
Genuinely does.
exactly. Wouldn't happen on my watch. Now, recently we saw punters snowed in at a Yorkshire pub. Now people are trapped at an IKEA showroom. Yes, really. The Sun reports 6 customers and around 12 employees of a branch in Denmark were forced to spend the night after they were trapped by snow. Choosing not to try and fight their way home in treacherous conditions, they decided to spend the night in actual beds in the shop and eat in the restaurant. Surely that beats sleeping in the car. I've got to say, that is my dream. I do love a good branch of IKEA. I mainly go to IKEA just for the experience, for the meatballs, to look at the furniture and imagine what kind of magical life I might have one day, but probably never will. Now, a bomb squad was rushed to a hospital after a man went to A&E with a World War II anti-tank shell. Let me start this again because it's important. A bomb squad was rushed to a hospital after a man went to A&E with a World War II anti-tank shell stuck up his bottom. His derriere, that's right, a bomb up his bum. The Sun reports doctors were worried the munition could explode, but it was extracted prior to police and the army arriving. I'm not sure how they got it out. Maybe they gave him a couple of drinks, played him some Barry White. I'm not sure what the approach was. It was then established there was no risk other patients or staff at the Gloucester Royal Hospital. The unnamed patient who got himself in this unfortunate situation insists he slipped and fell on it. We've all been there.
Is this the same bloke that slipped and fell with the tea?
Well, I think so. Sounds like a very similar tall story, doesn't it? It's reported he collects military memorabilia. Well, now we know where he keeps it. Very excited because on that rather explosive note, let me tell you that we are going to play a great British game show after this. So excited. It's always a big game based around a news story of the day. Our panel will play in the studio. I want you to play along at home. It's about the items that cost less than 10 quid in Santa's sack of goodies. The game is simply called Lapland or Poundland. You're going to love it. We'll play that after this. Plus, we'll get my panel's nominations for their must-watch Christmas movies and more Christmas trees from you at home. See you after the weather.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello, rather changeable conditions this weekend. There will be outbreaks of rain at times for just about all of us at some point. However, it does tend to turn drier and brighter for most on Sunday, if feeling on the chilly side. Now back to the here and now, a number of weather fronts skirting across southern counties of England. Meanwhile, this weather front waiting in the wings will bring a thicker cloud and outbreaks of showery rain in from the northwest. This may well give some sleet or snow over the higher ground of the north. All in all, quite a lot of cloud around overnight tonight, and that will help keep temperatures up, at least not falling too low. We could just see a touch of frost in more rural parts of the west, where we do see clearing skies towards the end of the night. So a little bit of a chilly start for some tomorrow, but not as cold as some recent mornings. However, as the wind starts to become brisker through the course of the day, it will feel decidedly chilly, even where we do get a glimpse of sunshine. There will be a good deal of cloud around throughout the day on Saturday, a little bit of sunshine here and there, but further outbreaks of showery rain, and again, some of that will be on the wintry side, particularly over higher ground. Now, as we head through Saturday evening and overnight, this showery rain continues to track its way eastwards, not clearing the east completely. Further showery outbreaks here, but elsewhere tending to turn drier as the night wears on. So it will be a dry, a bright, but a chilly start to the day for some on Sunday morning, particularly across more northern and western parts of the country. So as we start the day on Sunday, still a good deal of cloud across central and eastern areas, still some showers feeding through on that brisk north to northwesterly wind, but there will be brighter skies elsewhere, which will spread to most parts by the end of the day. So Sunday for most looking like the better day of the weekend for getting out and about, but turning unsettled again into next week with some very windy conditions on Tuesday.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
I have literally received hundreds of photographs of your Christmas trees. They're all stunning in different ways. And the team have compiled a few more for the end of the show, but I'll never reply to every single one. But thank you so much for them. You've got lovely homes, lovely families, lovely pets, and lovely trees. Mwah! Merry Christmas, everyone. So lots to get through in this last chunk of the show. And with me reacting to the big stories of the day, Sophie Corcoran, Nick Dixon, and Dave Chawner. It's that time of the year in which Secret Santas are organised and work colleagues across the country scramble for the perfect gift. So it's a basic idea that you grab a cheap gift and it goes into a little bit of packaging, a little wrapping, and then you give someone else and, you know, everyone gets a cheap present. It's quite a good idea. The Secret Santa is an awkward experience for many, as shown by this online thread on Mumsnet. One woman revealed that she was given gin-infused chocolates despite everyone in the office knowing she was a recovering alcoholic. Awkward. Another shared her embarrassment at receiving a bra from Anne Summers, probably from a creepy male colleague. Well, fear not, Britain, because we are here to help you find the ideal budget gift. That's right, we're full of great ideas on this show. We've got the ultimate budget gift idea. It's time to play the Great British Game Show. Yes, it's time for a Great British Game Show. We play that at this time every Friday, Saturday and Sunday. Today's game is called Lapland or Poundland. Panel, I want you to tell me whether these products can be purchased for a tenner or less, or do you need to push the boat out? So I want you to play along at home as well, please. So if you think the gift I'm going to show you costs more than a tenner, you shout Lapland. What do you shout?
Lapland.
Well done. They're easily led. And if it costs £10 or less, you shout
Poundland.
They've got the hang of this. These guys will go far. So let's start with this one. It's a personalised photo blanket.
Lapland.
Oh, I've got one of them of Margaret Thatcher, Lapland.
Have you really?
Yeah, it's got
Margaret
like,
Thatcher?
yeah, I've got a custom.
And are you like quite careful about where you put Mrs. Thatcher's face?
Well, I mean, I have a cardboard cutout as well, so they do not leave my home. They do not come to
Not
Durham.
friends. I mean, like, why would you not have like one of your family or your dog?
Like because Thatcher is queen, so she. Yeah, I have my Thatcher. I have my Thatcher blanket.
Sophie, come on, we need a word here. We need an intervention, Mark.
That's quite a remarkable thing. I'm not sure where we go from there. Margaret Thatcher personalised towel. Which celebrities would you put on your towel? Nick Dixon?
That's an extraordinary question. I'd have Mark Dolan, probably.
No, that wasn't a question. Mark was saying he'd put Nick Dixon on his... that's what he said.
Well, I would happily dry your body anytime, Nick Dixon.
Good thing this is on late.
Before I get in trouble, let's move on. So what are you saying? You're saying
I'm saying Poundland just to be different.
And you're saying Lapland?
You ain't getting that out of Poundland.
You've both gone Lapland, so I'm going Poundland.
Let's find out.
Well, I can tell you it's Poundland.
No,
Thank
you.
It's less than a tenner. That's right.
ND
It's less
for
than
the win.
a tenner, it's Poundland. If it's more than a tenner,
that's
it's
a
Lapland.
bargain.
So the first points go to Nick Dixon.
Thank you very much.
Daniel and the team, you're keeping count because this is hotly contested.
Let's win this.
How about this one? Number 2, the world's smallest blower.
Poundland.
That's Lapland. No way. You ain't getting a little blower for like.
Yeah, that's Lapland.
That's like couture.
It is Lapland,
Yes.
$11.99.
Vintage.
Dave Shauna there falling at the second hurdle, but that's not bad to get blown for just £11.99. Well done to whichever retailer achieved that one, because I can tell you I've got quite the dustiest keyboard. Ask anyone. How about this one, the third one? I like the look of this. Personalised quilted mule slippers.
Lapland.
They look like they're out of Primark, so Poundland.
I'm going Poundland.
They're Primark
Lapland.
specials, Primark specials.
Dave Shauna, I love you to bits, but it's not your light. It is Poundland.
Yes.
They cost just £6, an absolute
for
bargain.
me.
How about Hamish, the Highland cow footstool?
Lapland.
What on earth is that?
Well done. The points go to Dave Chawner. 75 quid for that monstrosity. And imagine if you sat incorrectly on that. We'd be back to the World War II bomb, wouldn't we? We'd be back to Barry White.
No one wants to get the
Okay, how about this one, number 5? A mug. A posh mug.
That's Lapland. It's got the word posh in it.
Poundland.
Poundland.
Can I give you more detail? Fortnum and Mason's Clover
Oh,
Leaf mug.
Lapland.
Made in England by Royal Crown Derby. 95 quid.
Hang on. I contest. They said Poundland first. So
No, they didn't say all the other stuff.
No one's winning a yacht.
You said Poundland, then you changed it.
No, I said Lapland straight away. I said it's posh.
There you go.
Oh,
Well, I'll
okay.
let the
I'll give you
judges
that.
decide
I'm still ahead.
up there in the gallery. How about this one? A sweater. Burberry sweater.
Burberry,
Poundland.
that's Lapland if it's Burberry.
It could have been from the market in Turkey.
Could be a knocked-off version.
Well, that's a
Poundland
trick.
then.
It's Lapland.
Or it could be from a charity shop, couldn't it?
Yep.
That's cheating. It's Lapland all the way.
It is Lapland. £790. What? And how about this last one? Journaling is a big new craze. So how about this Serenity notebook?
Poundland.
No, that's Lapland because they love an expensive
They rip you off
journal,
with that.
don't
Yeah,
they?
yeah,
They
yeah.
love
You
it.
could get it for 99p, but that will be Lapland. That will be
If
something.
you go in typo, you've got to take it
James,
out.
your chance to steal the point.
Poundland.
It's the right answer.
No.
You gave him that. You said it's your chance
Yeah,
to
to
point.
be
but you
fair,
gave
I
it.
say conspiracy.
I've still.
I want to thank my mum, my
He did say
dad.
He did say Poundland before I said it's your chance to steal. It's £10. It's right.
think
Do
I've
we have
still
a
won.
winner, gallery?
It's ND.
It's a tie. It's a dead heat. So you will have to share the spoils.
Outrageous.
Well done to
Human.
my
Right to the
brilliant
death.
panel for playing that game, and well done to my team for putting that game together. Not the easiest task, but we do one every night. Really excited about tomorrow night's show, by the way. We've got Limal live on tomorrow's programme. Pop sensation Limal, a true legend of 80s music. So get your questions in for Mark Meets. We're really excited about tomorrow's show. So many other great stories. We've got a clash, which we're currently booking. It's all about whether, if you're overweight, you should get vouchers to lose that weight, FAQs, you name it. Plus, I'm already getting tomorrow's monologue ready. But now, your final Christmas decorations. This is from Derek. Derek, thank you so much for sending your tree. That's really, really nice. It's so unusual because it's sort of got these massive baubles, these wonderful balls and domes and spheres. not much tree. It's been outnumbered. But I like it. It's really different, Derek, and I like the lights as well. They're very, very pretty. And I think that I very much like the sort of golden finish of those images, those pictures you've got on the wall as well, which fit with some of the baubles on the tree. So well done, Derek. How about this one? Ram says, great show, Mark. I'm a huge fan and glad to see you back on the screen this evening. I put my tree up yesterday. It was the first thing I did after I got back from the USA. And Ram, that's a lovely one. Gorgeous tree. Is that a natural tree? I think so. Looks very, very healthy and green. Congratulations to you. How about this from David and Lindsay? Hi, guys. Thanks for watching the show. They say, love the show. Here's our Christmas tree and our two cavapoos, Waffle and Molly. Yes, it's Waffle on the left and Molly on the right. We love the dogs. We love your sofa. I love your fireplace, your flat screen telly. And I love that tree. And that is out of a showroom. That's better than IKEA, let me tell you. That looks like the bloody Ritz Hotel. Great job, David and Lindsay, and my love to Waffle and Molly. Finally, and we just have time to mention this very briefly, a woman got in trouble for watching The Grinch over and over again more than 50 times. So, panel, what are your favourite Christmas movies? David?
Muppets Christmas Carol.
Featuring Michael Caine.
Featuring Michael Caine. And it was also the film that inspired Dickens to write it. So yeah,
that's exactly right. Dickens ripped it off.
Yeah,
he ripped off Disney.
Absolutely.
I love that movie. I love Kermit. He's my hero. How about you, Nick?
I have to go with The Snowman because it's so magical when you're a child, the incredible song Walking in the Air. But I also say Gremlins, which is a bit of a
left field
curveball because it is sort of Christmassy. And I'd even say, here's a real curveball, Empire Strikes Back, because it was always on at Christmas.
Yeah,
this is my thing. Can you count films that are on at Christmas? I say
Mary Poppins is another sort of Christmassy vibe. Very briefly, only a couple of seconds. Sophie, your favourite Christmas movie?
The Grinch, but the original one, not the cartoon one.
It's always got to be.
I love The Grinch.
Well, I love The Polar Express and National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
What?
Hey, we've got a big show tomorrow. Thanks to the team, and I'll see you tomorrow evening at 9.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show, Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.